Chapter 111. The Labor Day holiday was around the corner, and Ouyang Shua started thinking about how to arrange the holiday. Should he take Binger out for a few days? After much consideration, Ouyang Shua decided not to log into the game during the holiday and focus on traveling with Binger. Ouyang Shua naturally had his own considerations when he made such a decision. First, Shanghai town's development had entered a period of adjustment. Politics, economy, culture, and military needed time to settle, and there wouldn't be any big movements for the time being. Even if he wasn't there would be Fan Zhongyan, Shi Wansui, and a bunch of other officials in charge, and there wouldn't be any trouble. Second, in reality, there was only half a year left before they had to say goodbye to Earth. Humans had feelings. As a native Earthling, as long as he thought of the beautiful mountains and rivers of his motherland, he would never be able to see them again. He would only be able to see them in his dreams. It was difficult for people who didn't know the truth to understand such feelings. Thus, Ouyang Shua decided to take advantage of this holiday to say goodbye. After making up his mind, Ouyang Shua started preparing for the trip. In the meeting room of the Lord's residence, Ouyang Shua gathered the 4 directors and 4 battalion commanders for a meeting. He looked around. I called everyone here to announce a piece of news. Good news or bad news? Ingyu joked. Neither. Ouyang Shua shook his head. From tomorrow onwards, I will be going into seclusion for 5 days. I'll leave Shanghai town in your hands while I'm not here. It wasn't strange that the NPC saw a player not being online for a long period of time. As for what to do and whether to eat or not, the players didn't have to worry about it. The omnipotent system god would give the NPCs a reasonable explanation. Before I go into seclusion, there are some things I need to tell you. Ouyang Shua smiled. Please give us your orders, master. First, the military office and the cavalry division. You could try to contact the nomadic tribes on your own while I'm not here. My suggestion is to suppress the small tribes on the east and west sides. As for the medium-sized tribes in the middle, work with them first. If possible, get a batch of excellent buckskin horses and raise them in Gale Valley. Ouyang Shua looked at Gu Hongliang and Lin Yi. Don't worry, sir. The military office's focus in the near future will be the construction of the Storm Valley military horse farm. As for how to obtain the green beetle horse stallion, the military office already had a preliminary idea. As for the specifics, we still need the military intelligence division to investigate further, as well as the cavalry battalion's follow-up actions. Gu Hongliang replied. Ouyang Shua nodded and said, all right, then I'll wait and see. He turned his head to look at Pei Donglai, who had rushed over from North Sea Town, and said, General Pei, the Mengchong battleships have been completed over at the Navy camp. We can begin to head out to sea. You have to explore the surrounding sea area and see if there are any islands or such. In addition, he could not let his guard down against the pirates. Although it's still calm, I don't believe that there aren't any pirates in this region. Yes, don't worry, my lord. This general also wanted to take the sons of the Navy camp for a spin in the sea, letting them see the world and feel the storms on the sea. This group of boys had never been to the sea before. This was unacceptable. As for the pirates, I will keep an eye on it, Pei Donglai said as he stood up. All right, with General Pei's guarantee, I can rest assured. Ouyang Shua looked at Zhao Sihu and said, Zhao Jianjun, I only have one request for the city defense camp, and that is to strengthen the city's defensive combat training. Our soldiers are used to fighting in the open or attacking fortifications, but they don't have the slightest bit of experience in defending a city. This won't do. Don't be fooled by the singing and dancing outside. Those bandits and whatnot don't look that strong and can't even withstand a single blow. That's because they haven't gathered together. Once they do, they won't be easy to deal with. Therefore, as the garrison of the main camp, we must strengthen the city defense training. We must let the soldiers familiarize themselves with the various city wall facilities so that they know what to do and are proficient in operating them. Don't make last-minute efforts. Zhao Siu stood up, saluted, and said solemnly, As you command. Please rest assured, my lord, this general will strengthen the training and resolutely defend the safety of the main camp. Ouyang Shua nodded and looked at Shi Wansui, saying, General Shi, I trust you and the infantry battalion, so I won't make any special instructions. I only hope that our Shanghai town's heavy infantry battalion can take shape as soon as possible. In addition, you will be the leader of the military when I'm not here. You must coordinate and handle any troublesome issues properly. Yes, my lord, please rest assured, Shirwan Sui said loudly. After arranging the military affairs, Ouyang Shuo left the 4 directors alone and said, Mr. Sven will be the leader of the civil officials when I'm not here. The directors can discuss and solve any troublesome issues. Yes. As for the Finance Bureau, with the increase in expenditure, it will also be a problem to carry out effective supervision and ensure that the funds are used properly. I hope that the Finance Bureau can come up with a preliminary opinion during this period and make a decision after I return. Ouyang Shuo said to Ingyu. Ingyu nodded and said, Rest assured, Big Brother. Director Su also mentioned this issue to me before. With Big Brother's reminder, it's indeed a critical time. When Big Brother returns, the Finance Bureau will give us a preliminary opinion. That's good. Ouyang Shuo looked at Tian Wenjing and said, I feel very assured with Director Tian overseeing the Supplies Bureau. However, the negotiations with the mountain barbarian tribes cannot be stopped. Those mountain barbarian tribes that have the intention of cooperating can be provided with some food to lower their guard against us. My lord, please rest assured. Ouyang Shuo nodded and looked at Gu Hongliang. As for the military bureau, apart from the construction of the Storm Valley Military Horse Farm, there are 2 other things that need to be done quickly. First, the intelligence investigation of the surrounding bandits must not be stopped. Instead, it must be strengthened. Second, the training of skilled personnel in the armor and crossbow departments must be continued. The military industry in the future will be extremely large. The more skilled personnel, the better. Understood. Ouyang Shuo looked at Fan Zhongyan and said, Sir, it's been hard on you during this period. Don't worry, my lord. I won't let you down. If that's the case, I can rest assured, Ouyang Shuo said in the end. Hearing that Ouyang Shuo was going on a trip, Xiaoya clamored to join in. With Bing, adding fuel to the fire, Ouyang Shuo could only obediently surrender. As for where to go to play, the 3 of them had a disagreement again. Xiaoya wanted to go to Lijiang in Yunnan to tour the magnificent scenery. Bing wanted to go to Demonic City to see her aunt. Ouyang Shuo immediately saw through the little girl's thoughts. She didn't want to see her aunt. She was clearly eyeing Disneyland in Demonic City. As for Ouyang Shuo himself, he wanted to make a trip to Mount Tai. Mount Tai was the symbol of the Chinese nation. It was the epitome of the splendid Eastern culture, the place where the idea of the unity of man and nature was placed, and the home of the Chinese spirit. As such, he naturally wanted to visit Mount Tai before leaving Earth. Such a place was the first choice for his farewell trip to Earth. Fortunately, modern technology was highly developed, and the transportation system couldn't be compared to 200 years ago. For such a long-distance trip, the most suitable means of transportation wasn't an airplane, but an air train. Riding the air train not only had the speed of an airplane, but it was also flying at a low altitude, and one could enjoy the scenery along the way. Because there was enough time, a full 5 days. In the end, Ouyang Shuo decided to follow the route of Jiaozhou, Demonic City, Mount Tai, Lijiang, Jiaozhou to take a quick trip across the country. Ever since Ouyang Shuo had showdown with his aunt, the 2 of them had occasionally contacted each other, and their relationship had eased up quite a bit. When his aunt found out that Ouyang Shuo and his sister had come to Demonic City for sightseeing, she purposely took 2 days to bring them around. Of course, the main point of the tour was Disneyland, which was Bing Er's favorite. Finally, the little girl's fairy tale dream was fulfilled. After leaving Demonic City, Ouyang Shuo and his sister took the air train again and went straight to Mount Tai. Mount Tai was famous for its magnificent scenery. The overlapping mountains, the heavy shape, the green pines and huge rocks set off the scenery, and the changes in the clouds made it majestic and beautiful at the same time. The natural Mount Tai showed the magic of nature. The cultural Mount Tai proved the holiness of culture. Feeling the majesty of Mount Tai, Ouyang Shuo's soul seemed to have been baptized. In order to watch the sunrise, Ouyang Shuo made up his mind and directly brought the 2 beauties to stay in a high-end hotel at the top of Mount Tai. In the early morning, Ouyang Shuo and Bing watched the sunrise together. The little girl was woken up early by her brother. She seemed extremely unwilling and confused, which made her look extremely cute. In the misty morning, standing on the top of Mount Tai, looking at the misty sea of clouds, there was a colorful halo that was blue on the inside and red on the outside. The halo reflected the whole person or head in it, like a colorful halo above the head of a Buddha statue. It was extremely shocking. Seeing such a beautiful scenery, Binger was no longer confused. Her little mouth opened wide, and she said crisply, "Ah, what a beautiful sun. It's red like a big apple." In the end, the little girl still couldn't get rid of her little foodie nature. Even when looking at the red sun, she could associate it with apples. After leaving Mount Tai, Ouyang Shuo deliberately took a detour to Tsiufu, the hometown of Confucius. Among the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, 4 of them had left traces of their activities in Tsiufu and created a developed ancient civilization. Tsiufu was also the capital of the state of Lu, the hometown of Confucius, and was known as the Holy City of the East. After leaving Tsiufu, they came to their last stop, Lijiang, Yunnan. Lijiang's beautiful scenery was indeed incomparable to the wilderness in the game. Chapter 112. Gaia First Year, May 5th, Ouyang Shuo came online again. After going out to play, Ouyang Shuo felt that his spirit was boosted. His nerves, which had been tense since his rebirth, could finally relax completely. After going online, Ouyang Shuo first learned the Yang family spear scripture. System notification. Congratulations to player not saying you have closed for obtaining the Emperor level technique Yang family spear scripture. Do you want to learn it? Learn it. With a whoosh, the secret manual in his hand turned into a white light and shot into Ouyang Shuo's forehead. Instantly, all the information regarding the Yang family spear scripture surged into his mind, waiting for him to slowly digest it. As a secret manual of a higher level than the 8 Extremities Fist scripture, the Yang family spear scripture was much more difficult to learn. With no one to guide him, he still needed a period of practice to get started. Ouyang Shuo raised the fine iron spear in his hand and tried to practice the moves according to the secret manual. It was indeed very jerky. It seemed that he had to seek guidance from the 2 spear masters, Shi Wansui and Lin Yi. In his previous life, the halberd he used was very different from the spear he used in this life, so there wasn't much experience he could use as a reference. Ouyang Shuo's appearance immediately startled Ying Yu and Qing, in the backyard. "Big brother, you're finally back." Qing, stood in the corridor and said happily. At this moment, Ouyang Shuo was practicing his spear techniques and didn't have time to care about her. Only when he finished practicing according to the routine did he stop and said with a smile, "Yeah, were you naughty while I wasn't around?" "Humph, big brother, don't look down on me. How was I naughty? If you don't believe me, ask Sister Yingyu." Qing, said with a face of displeasure. Yingyu stood to the side and said with a smile, "Big brother, after you left, the entire Lord's mansion felt a lot more deserted. Everyone says that it's because they don't have you as their backbone." "Yeah, no one wants to quarrel with him," Qing chimed in. Ouyang Shuo shook his head and said, "You 2 girls don't flatter me. How is it? Is everything going smoothly in the territory?" The last question was directed at Yingyu. "Yes, everything is going according to the arrangements Big Brother made before you left," Yingyu said vaguely. Ouyang Shuo also knew that the backyard wasn't a place to talk about work, so he was just casually asking. He let the sisters go about their own business while he continued to practice the Yang clan spear. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Ouyang Shuo appeared in his office on time. Knowing that the Sir Lord had returned, all the departments rushed to report their work. Ouyang Shuo had no choice but to gather everyone in the meeting hall to discuss the matter. Ouyang Shuo took a seat in the seat of honor as he looked around and smilingly said, "I've troubled all of you for the past 5 days. What do the various departments have to report? Let's start with the administrative office." Sun Yanong, the head of the Department of Agriculture, was the first to stand up and say, "Reporting to Darren, the Department of Agriculture has something to report. Please speak." After 3 months of careful domestication by the breeders, The 100 bison and 80 wild boars we caught before, except for the 10 calves and 5 boars that died prematurely, have all grown up and are ready to be released. As for the subsequent arrangements for these wild boars and wild cattle, I hope sir can tell me. Sun Yanong said. What does the Department of Agriculture think? Ouyang Shuo didn't answer directly. Sun Yanong seemed to have a plan in mind and said, the Department of Agriculture thinks that the wild boars and bison should be handled separately. As for the wild boars, all the sows should be kept. As for the boars, except for 2 for breeding, the rest should be slaughtered. As for the bison, all of them should be kept to further expand the scale of breeding. Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, I basically agree with the Department of Agriculture's opinion. It's just that the handling of the bison should be more flexible. These bison are all good cattle for farming. Since they have grown up, it would be too wasteful to leave them in the pasture. How about this? These bison will be handed over to Pool Town for management. Department head Sun, you have to explain to Pool Town clearly. The bison can be given to the farmers for farming, but the calves produced by the bison must be distributed by Pool Town. Understood. Darren's consideration is still thorough. I admire you. Sun Yanong respectfully retreated. After Sun Yanong retreated, Department head Du Quan stood up and said loudly, reporting to Darren, the Department of Statistics has something to report. Ouyang Shuo smiled and asked, Department head, Du must have some good news? Du Quan nodded and said, to tell you the truth, it is indeed good news. Among the refugees spawned this week, an extremely special talent appeared. His name is Song Yin, and he once held the position of an enforcer. Disciplinary officer? Ouyang Shuo was a little confused. Let me explain it to my lord. Seeing Ouyang Shuo's confusion, Fan Zhongyan, who was born in the Song dynasty, stood up and said, the Song dynasty established the disciplinary officers, or disciplinary officers for short. They were in charge of the judiciary, prisons, and supervision of the various provinces. They were also in charge of agriculture. The disciplinary officers would patrol the provinces and counties under their jurisdiction regularly. They would impeach the local officials for delaying the trial and failing to catch the thieves on time. The disciplinary officers were also in charge of handling difficult cases, redressing wrongful convictions, and accepting appeals from the people. Therefore, those who could become disciplinary officers were not only familiar with the local government affairs, but also proficient in the law and judging cases. It was extremely rare. After listening to Fan Zhongyan's explanation, Ouyang Shuo was enlightened. The disciplinary officers were amazing. In modern society, they were the chief prosecutor of the province, the head of the public security department, the president of the provincial high court, and the commander of the provincial military. Moreover, they were directly responsible to the central government and did not have a direct subordinate. After understanding the duties of the disciplinary officers, Ouyang Shuo suddenly became very interested in this disciplinary officer called Song Yin. He smiled and said to Du Quan, since this Song Yin is so amazing, why don't you invite him over and let me meet him? Yes. Du Quan turned and walked out of the meeting hall. Less than 5 minutes later, Du Quan returned with a middle-aged man. This middle-aged man was about 30 years old and wore a tight-fitting cotton robe. He was tall and straight. His face was sharp as a knife, his eyes were cold, and the wrinkles on his forehead were very obvious. He did not look like a scholar, but more like a military officer. I, Song Yin, pay my respects to my lord. Song Yin immediately bowed and greeted him under Du Quan's signal. Mr. Song, please rise. Ouyang Shuo nodded and took the opportunity to look at his attributes. Name, Song Yin Gold. Identity, resident of Shanghai Town. Occupation, civil official. High scholar. Loyalty, 75 points. Commander, 20 martial power, 25 intelligence, 55 politics, 65 skills. Hate evil, increases prestige by 15. Clear injustice, increases efficiency of solving cases by 15. Evaluation, once held the position of disciplinary officer, has rich experience as a local official, is familiar with the hidden rules of officialdom, proficient in the law, and good at solving cases. He has a strong disposition and is upright. He is straightforward and unyielding. He is indeed a rare talent. Ouyang Shuo nodded with satisfaction and said, Mr. is indeed talented. Since Mr. has held the position of disciplinary officer, why don't we set up a disciplinary department in Shanghai Town to be in charge of the territory's justice and prisons? Mr. will be the director. What do you think? Ouyang Shua had set a limit on the responsibilities of the disciplinary officer according to the actual situation of Shanghai Town. He did not completely copy the official system of the Song dynasty, but only retained the two responsibilities of justice and prisons. It was similar to the combination of the judicial office and prison in modern society. Song Yin bowed again and said, "Thank you for your trust, my lord. I will definitely not let you down." As an experienced disciplinary officer, Song Yin naturally understood the meaning behind Ouyang Shua's words. After the interlude with the disciplinary officer, the other departments continued to make their reports. The director of the construction department, Zhao Duong, who had successfully replaced Zhao Yufeng as the Lord's favorite because of his ability, stood up and said, "Reporting to my lord, the construction department has something to report. Please speak." The Storm Valley Military Horse Farm has been renovated. The construction department's next task. Please arrange it, my lord. Ouyang Shua nodded, very satisfied with the construction department's efficiency. He said with a smile, "Our next goal is to be promoted to a first-class county. Therefore, the construction department's next task is to complete the overall plan of the county in advance, including the preparatory work for the second city wall." Understood, Zhao Duong said with a nod. After the construction department's report, the administrative office's report came to an end. Ouyang Shua turned to look at Tian Wenjing and asked, "Is there anything from the supplies department to report?" Tian Wenjing nodded and looked at Zheng Shanpao of the carriage department, indicating for him to stand up and report. Zheng Shanpao immediately stood up and said, "Reporting to my lord, the carriage department has two matters to report. Please speak." The first matter is also related to the Storm Valley Military Horse Farm. Just now, Director Zhao already said that the basic facilities of the horse farm have been completed. The carriage department has also begun to train the horse breeders and stock up fodder. It can be said that the preparatory work has been completed, only the stallions are missing. Zheng Shanpao said. Ouyang Shua nodded and did not express his opinion, indicating for Zheng Shanpao to continue. The second matter is related to land transportation. Ever since we have the wooden ox, we have solved the problem of long-distance transportation. However, with the increase in population, we still do not have a transportation tool like horse carriages. This is somewhat inappropriate, so I want to ask my lord to coordinate. Zheng Shanpao continued. Ouyang Shua suddenly realized that this was his negligence. He only thought of transporting goods and forgot about the horse carriages. Speaking of which, the relay station built at the second-class township stage was still a decoration. Director Zheng's reminder is good. This is my negligence. How about this? The carriage department will choose a place and let the construction department build a horse carriage workshop to produce horse carriages by hand. As for the technical manual for horse carriage manufacturing, I will buy it from the market after the meeting. Ouyang Shua said. Yes, Zheng Shanpao said excitedly. Chapter 113. After Zheng Shanpao left, Tian Wenjing got up and reported, "My lord, there's been some progress in the negotiations with the other barbarian tribes." Ouyang Shua was shocked. "Please speak, sir." The two medium-sized tribes and 6 small tribes in the vicinity were first deterred by the Shanghai Town Army's powerful military force in the Storm Valley. During the negotiations, they learned that the Mystic Bird tribe and the other 3 small tribes have completely solved the problem of food and clothing after cooperating with us. Thanks to our efforts, these tribes finally let down their guard and are willing to cooperate with us, said Tian Wenjing. Good. Have you discussed the specific framework of the cooperation, sir? Ouyang Shua asked with a smile. Tian Wenjing nodded. Yes. This subordinate has discussed the general contents of the cooperation with them and is waiting for you to come back and make the final decision. Please speak, sir. First is the cooperation in terms of soldiers. The barbarian tribes are willing to follow the example of the Mystic Bird tribe and send their most elite warriors to the Shanghai Town Army in exchange for subsidies. The small tribes will send 100 people while the medium-sized tribes will send 200 people. That's a total of 1,000 people. Enough for 2 battalions, said Tian Wenjing. Ouyang Shuo pondered for a moment and shook his head. Our cooperation with the Mystic Bird Tribe 2 months ago was limited by the conditions at that time. Both sides didn't have enough trust at that time. That's why we decided to compromise by exchanging soldiers for subsidies. The flaw in this cooperation is very obvious. The barbarian soldiers in the Shanghai Town Army are all soldiers, but they don't get their own subsidies and have to hand them over to the tribe. Not only will this create a psychological gap in the barbarian soldiers, but it's also not conducive to enhancing their sense of belonging to the town. It's easy to cause them to lose their sentiments towards the town. This kind of emotional separation would cause the soldiers to lose their sense of honor. They were not fighting for Shanghai Town, but for their stipends. The loss of honor is undoubtedly a fatal blow to the army's combat strength. It's fine if the war goes smoothly, but how can they be asked to fight to the death if there's a setback on the battlefield? Military Chief Gu Hongliang nodded in agreement. What you said is correct, sir. There are already bad signs in the army. The barbarian soldiers and the soldiers from Shanghai Town have been invisibly divided into 2 groups. After all, Tian Wenjing was a civil official and wasn't good at military affairs. He asked humbly, then, according to my lord's opinion, how should we deal with it? Ouyang Shuo faintly smiled and said, the situation is different now. The strong and the weak have already been determined. When it's time to be tough, we must be tough. My opinion is that these selected barbarian warriors, including their families, must all settle down in Shanghai Town and truly become part of Shanghai Town. Only in this way could they truly be of one mind and form a cohesive force. Only then would the army not be divided into groups because of their different backgrounds. As compensation, every barbarian warrior would be given a lump sum of 1 gold coin to their tribe. In addition, give each tribe a batch of food at one time. The amount will be 100,000 units for medium-sized tribes and 50,000 units for small-sized tribes. The conditions given by the Lord are already very generous. The mountain barbarians have no reason to refuse, Tian Wenjing said excitedly. I'll have to trouble you with the specifics of the negotiation. In addition, the 700 barbarian soldiers that have already joined Shanghai Town will also have to follow the same method. Ouyang Shuo added. Understood. Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, please continue with the other contents of the cooperation, Mr. Since the Wolf Mountain mine is already full, there's limited space for labor cooperation. According to Physician Song's reminder, the mountain is rich in all kinds of medicinal herbs. Therefore, this subordinate has made an agreement with the tribes that they will be responsible for gathering medicinal herbs in the mountain, and Shanghai Town will purchase them at market price. Or we can directly exchange the medicinal herbs for food. Tian Wenjing was obviously dissatisfied with this negotiation and said with difficulty. Ouyang Shuo furrowed his brows. This was not the result he wanted. He asked, Mister, have you tested these barbarian tribes to see if they are willing to go down the mountain and settle down in Shanghai Town? Tian Wenjing shook his head and said bitterly, this subordinate has tried repeatedly, but the result was not ideal. The situation in these barbarian homelands is very serious, especially for the older generation of barbarians. They would rather starve in the mountain than leave their tribes and live with us. Furthermore, these tribes have built ancestral temples, which are the embodiment of their tribe's totems and beliefs. It's simply impossible to abandon them. Settling down in Shanghai Town doesn't mean that they have to live with us. We can completely build relatively autonomous mountain barbarian settlements for them. As for the ancestral temples, it's not that we can't be flexible. Shanghai Town protects the freedom of religious belief of all subjects and respects the religious beliefs of all ethnic groups. We can completely build new ancestral temples for them in their settlements, and I guarantee that it will be more magnificent than their current ancestral temples. Ouyang Shuo said unwillingly. Tian Wenjing's eyes lit up. He said, Your Highness is very thoughtful. This subordinate will continue to negotiate with the barbarian tribes according to the conditions Your Highness has given. Well, Mr. can first concentrate on attacking a certain tribe. It's best to choose a small tribe that is especially difficult to survive in. As long as someone takes the lead, the other tribes won't be shaken. When they see the real situation of the mountain barbarian settlements, even if a small number of people oppose it, they won't be able to stop the general trend. Ouyang Shuo personally instructed. Understood. As for the medicinal herb cooperation that Mr. just mentioned, it's indeed very necessary. Although the territory has already built a medicinal herb garden, it's limited by the growing environment. Many medicinal herbs simply can't be cultivated in the medicinal herb garden and can only be picked in the deep mountains and forests. In this aspect, the mountain barbarians are experts. With the expansion of the territory, the demand for medicinal herbs will rapidly increase. It's very correct to plan early. Ouyang Shuo didn't want Tian Wenjing to be too depressed and affirmed the results of this negotiation. Yes, as for the labor cooperation that Mr. just mentioned, moving the mountain barbarians out of the deep mountains is of course the best and also our final goal. However, in this process, it was not impossible to make some compromises. We can completely encourage those young mountain barbarians to bravely walk out of the deep mountains and come to Shanghai town to work or become apprentices. Whether it's a construction site or a large workshop, they can find a well-paid job that's enough to support their families. They are aggressive, more receptive to new things, and more adaptable to change. In this way, we can also slowly change the inherent views of the mountain barbarian tribes. Ouyang Shuo said. Ouyang Shuo's point of view wasn't just Tian Wenjing. Even Fan Zhongyan, Cui Yingyu, and the others' eyes lit up. In the eyes of the ancients, this method of labor transfer that was used 200 years ago could still be described as earth-shattering. This subordinate admires the Lord's ingenious plan, Tian Wenjing said sincerely. Ouyang Shuo waved his hand and smiled without saying anything. After the report from the Supplies Reserve Department, Yingyu took the initiative to stand up. Big brother, before you left, you mentioned the problem of the supervision of the Finance Bureau's funds. The Finance Bureau already has a countermeasure. Big brother, please make a decision. Yingyu said, please speak. The Finance Bureau's suggestion is to establish an audit department under the Finance Bureau. The audit department's main responsibility is to audit the territory's revenue and expenditure in accordance with the law and efficiency, improve the efficiency of the use of financial funds, promote the construction of a clean government, and ensure the healthy development of the territory's economy. Yingyu continued. Ouyang Shuo pondered for a moment and said with a frown, I agree to establish the audit department. However, the audit department's responsibility is to audit the revenue and expenditure. If it is established under the Finance Bureau, wouldn't that be the same as supervising ourselves? Then, what does Big Brother think? Yingyu asked apprehensively. The audit department still needs to operate independently. This way we can maintain the authority of the audit. Ouyang Shuo said. Yingyu nodded and said, understood. As for the director of the audit department, does the Finance Bureau have a suitable candidate to recommend? Ouyang Shuo had just rejected the Finance Bureau's suggestion, and now he allowed the Finance Bureau to recommend a director candidate. The Finance Bureau's original choice for the director was Qin Shun from the business department. Qin Shun is just over 30 years old. He is a high scholar and has only recently joined the business department. According to Division Chief Su's evaluation, this person is also from the Ministry of Revenue, proficient in finance and taxation, upright and strict. Yingyu said, if that's the case, bring him here, I'll meet him. Yingyu signaled to Division Chief Qian Lifei, who was sitting behind her. Qian Lifei understood and immediately got up to leave the meeting hall. Not long after, he brought a middle-aged scholar in. This person had a medium build and was dressed meticulously. His figure was thin, he was just over 30 years old, and his cheeks were a little sunken. Subordinate Qin Shun greets Darren. After the middle-aged scholar entered, he bowed and said, please rise. Ouyang Shuo took the opportunity to check Qin Shun's personal attributes. Name, Qin Shun Silver, identity, Shanghai Town's Business Department Basic Level Clerk, occupation, civil official, high scholar, loyalty, 80 points commander, 20 martial power, 10 intelligence, 48 politics, 55 skills, upright and outspoken, increased prestige by 15, evaluation, former Ministry of Revenue clerk, proficient in finance and taxation, honest, upright, and strict. Qin Shun. After the recommendation of the Finance Bureau Chief Chui Yingyu, I have decided to appoint you as the director of the audit department. I hope that you will lead the audit department and guard the audit well. Ouyang Shua said solemnly. Many thanks for your recommendation. I will not let you down. Qin Shun said solemnly. System notification. Congratulations to player, not saying you have no clothes. Qin Shun has been put in an important position. Loyalty increased by 5 points. After dealing with the audit department's matters, it was already 11:30 in the morning. Ouyang Shua announced the end of the report. As for the military affairs, he was prepared to hold a special military meeting after he came down. Chapter 114. At 2 in the afternoon, Ouyang Shua didn't stay in the mansion. Instead, he went to Friendship Town on the other side of the Friendship River with Gu Hongliang and Song San. Old Zhang was still the ferryman at Shanghai Town's ferry. Of course, the simple wooden raft that Ouyang Shua made had been decommissioned a long time ago. He was now using a high-class fishing boat, similar to a black awning boat. Ouyang Shua sighed as he sat on the boat and looked at the sparkling surface of the river. Half a year had passed without him noticing. Back then, he brought Shi Wansui with him to the Lianzhou Basin and overcame all obstacles to establish the Shanghai village. At that time, there were many things waiting to be done in Shanghai Village. In less than 5 months, the small village had become Shanghai Town, which occupied 1,000 square kilometers and had a population of nearly 30,000. It became the unshakable number 1 territory of the players in China. However, if one did not advance, they would fall back. The current Shanghai Town seemed so insignificant in the future struggle for hegemony. At the dock of Friendship Town, Zhou Haichun, the governor of Friendship Town, and Lin Yi, the commander of the cavalry battalion, were waiting with a group of officials and generals, ready to welcome Ouyang Shua. This was the first time the Lord came to Friendship Town for an inspection. They couldn't be careless. After the black awning boat docked, Zhou Haichun and the others warmly welcomed them with a smile. "Welcome to Friendship Town, sir." Ouyang Shua walked out of the cabin and smiled as he waved goodbye to old man Zhang. Only then did he turn around and say to Zhou Haichun, "It's only a simple inspection. Is there a need to mobilize so many people?" Zhou Haichun's expression froze. He knew that he didn't like this kind of situation. Ouyang Shua didn't want Zhou Haichun to be too embarrassed. He nodded to the officials and generals as Zhou Haichun and Lin Yi introduced them. The administrative structure of Friendship Town was similar to that of the headquarters, but there were some differences. Among the 4 main divisions, only the headquarters had the military division. The subsidiary territories weren't permanent organizations. Only the combat division was kept as a logistics department. Other than that, the Special Salt Field Department was also a department unique to the headquarters. The civil officials in Friendship Town naturally couldn't compare to those in the headquarters. However, among the government officials at the grassroots level, they were also the cream of the crop. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the opportunity to be sent here to preside over the government affairs of a department and a bureau. Ouyang Shua only hoped that this group of people would be able to mature as soon as possible. As for the generals, they were all old acquaintances. The 5 platoon jarls of the cavalry battalion, including Hu Yibiao, the commanding general of the Friendship Town garrison, were all promoted and appointed by him. Naturally, there was no need for pleasantries. After a brief stay at the dock, the group rushed back to Friendship Town. From afar, they could see the tall walls of Friendship Town and the Grand Southern Gate. Fortunately, Zhou Haichun knew his limits and did not arrange for the commoners to line the streets to welcome them. As they walked into Friendship Town, Zhou Haichun introduced Friendship Town to Ouyang Shua. Friendship Town currently had a population of more than 2,600 people. It was about a week away from being promoted to a second-class town. Of course, the cavalry battalion stationed outside the city was not included. In order to guard against the nomads in the north, Friendship Town's agriculture was concentrated in the south, next to the Friendship River and Shoshue River. Some industries that needed to be built outside the city, such as brick kilns and pottery factories, were also built on the east and west sides of the city, surrounded by the moat. Because it was located in the plains, Friendship Town was extremely short of basic resources such as wood, stone, and iron ore. Basically, it was transported by the headquarters in Pool Town. The coordination in the middle was naturally the work of the Resource Reserve Department. Of course, Friendship Town was not without its own advantages. Not to mention the livestock industry that was to be developed in the future, it also had a unique geographical advantage in the field of agriculture. The south was located at the confluence of the Friendship River and Shoshue River. It was rich in water resources and the land was fertile. The cultivated farmland was much better than that of Shanghai Town. In this area, 20,000 mu of fertile farmland had been cultivated and all of it was planted with paddy rice. In the future, Friendship Town would become a food-producing base that was second only to Pool Town. At the same time, in order to form a unique advantage for Friendship Town and not be outdone by the two affiliated territories, Beihai Town and Pool Town, Zhou Haichun racked his brains to develop the forging and textile industries. These industries were prepared in advance for the future trade with the nomads. This showed Zhou Haichun's ambition and anxiety. It could be said that whether or not they could open up the trade route with the nomads would affect the position of Friendship Town. If they could open up the trade route, Friendship Town could be transformed into a trading city, becoming the link between the headquarters and the hinterland. If they could not open up the trade route, then Friendship Town would be trapped and completely degenerate into a military fortress. Therefore, Zhou Haichun had high hopes for Ouyang Shua's arrival. Ever since the construction of the moat was completed, Zhou Haichun had already sent people to try to contact the nomads in the north and had made some progress. However, it was up to the leader, Ouyang Shua, to decide what kind of strategy to adopt with these nomads. Unfortunately, what Zhou Haichun did not know was that Ouyang Shua's visit to Friendship Town was just a pretense. His real goal was to target the green beetle horses on the plains. It had been 2 months since the establishment of the armor workshop. The first batch of 50 radiant armor had been completed. Unfortunately, because there were no suitable war horses, they could not be equipped into the cavalry camp. How could Ouyang Shua not be anxious? In the meeting hall of Friendship Town, Ouyang Shua dismissed all the civil officials, including Zhou Haichun, leaving only the generals to hold a military meeting. Division Chief Go, tell me, has there been any progress with the green beetle horses? Ouyang Shua asked. This trip to Friendship Town was originally arranged by Gu Hongliang. With Gu Hongliang's cautious personality, he would not rashly bring Ouyang Shua here if there was no breakthrough. Gu Hongliang nodded and said, reporting to Sir, the intelligence division has obtained important information. 5 days ago, the small tribe on the west side of Friendship Town had just received over 100 fine green beetle horses from the Embark tribe. They are preparing to expand the scale of breeding green beetle horses. This is a heaven-sent opportunity. Ouyang Shua's heart moved, but he did not show it on his face. Oh, what do you mean? What this subordinate means is very simple. This opportunity cannot be missed. It will not come again. We might as well go all the way and loot this small tribe. If possible, we can also shift the blame to the middle-sized tribe to the north of Friendship Town, further alienating the relationship between the middle-sized tribe and the Heavenmark tribe. Gu Hongliang said calmly, as if he had no idea what kind of sea of blood would be created if he really did what he said. How many people does that small tribe have, and how many warriors? Ouyang Shua asked cautiously. This type of information was naturally answered by the Military Intelligence Division. Lei Sun, the leader of the 2nd Intelligence Division, stood up and said, reporting to Sir, the Intelligence Division has already investigated. This small tribe's grazing area is less than 500 square kilometers, and they only have 800 people and 300 warriors. Ouyang Shua turned to Lin Yi and asked, are you confident? Naturally, he knew what he meant by confident. It's not hard to take out their main force, but the hard part is not leaving any survivors. These nomads, be it men or women, all know how to ride horses. If we're not careful, There might be fish that slip through the net. For the green beetle horses, Ouyang Shuo was prepared to wield the butcher's knife. What does the military division think? Ouyang Shuo looked at Gu Hongliang again. Gu Hongliang was prepared for this. We have to do it cleanly, and a surprise attack is the most effective. Also, in order to prevent the situation General Lin mentioned, other than the main force attacking the tribe, we need to arrange for guards to kill the fish that slip through the net. Ouyang Shuo nodded. It's a good plan. However, we're facing 300 nomadic riders who are skilled with bows and horses. It's already difficult for the cavalry battalion to attack head-on. How will we have the strength to arrange for troops to intercept them? Sir, you're right. With the current forces in the territory, it's hard to complete this attack. The only plan is to increase the number of troops. Gu Hongliang said. Ouyang Shuo felt a headache coming. Is it appropriate to increase the number of troops before we're promoted to a first-level city? Don't forget that there are still 1,000 elite warriors waiting for us at the mountain barbarian side. Gu Hongliang had obviously considered everything and spoke confidently. Sir, the military division has a plan to reorganize the troops. Please make a decision. Speak. This is what I'm thinking. Our main camp will accept 500 of these 1,000 mountain barbarian warriors to form the 2nd Heavy Infantry Battalion. The remaining 500 will be divided into 300 to go to Pool Town. In addition to the 2 garrison companies, we'll form the Pool Town City Defense Battalion. The last 200 people will be distributed to Friendship Town. Recruit another 100 people on the spot to change their occupation to cavalry and form the Friendship Town City Defense Battalion. In this way, the overflow of troops won't be too serious. Similarly, for this operation, we can transfer a cavalry company from Pool Town City Defense Battalion and 2 cavalry companies from Friendship Town City Defense Battalion to participate in the operation. Ouyang Shuo's eyes lit up. In this way, other than the cavalry battalion and the infantry battalion, it wouldn't exceed the 10% recruitment ratio that he had initially set. All right, we'll go with this. Everyone, hurry up and get ready. Ouyang Shuo made the decision and announced the appointment and dismissal of military personnel. He said, pass my order from a military division. Appoint Zhang Denyo as the Pool Town City Defense Battalion Commander. Appoint Hu Yibiao as the Friendship Town City Defense Battalion Commander. And appoint Shi Hu as the 2nd Infantry Battalion Commander. Yes. Gu Hongliang nodded and said, Zhang Denyo, the squad leader who had competed with Zhao Sihu in the past, had finally been promoted to battalion commander and was once again on par with Zhao Sihu. Hu Yibiao was luckier. After being stationed in Friendship Town for slightly more than a month, he was promoted to battalion commander and was one step ahead of his seniors. As for the 2nd Infantry Battalion, the reason why Ouyang Shuo promoted Shi Hu from the 2nd Infantry Battalion instead of the 1st Infantry Battalion commander, Wang Feng, was because he had his own considerations. Firstly, Shi Hu's promotion was beneficial in condensing the mountain barbarian warriors' sense of belonging and showing them the Shanghai town's meritocracy. Secondly, Ouyang Shuo had other long-term plans for Wang Feng. Chapter 115. After the reorganization of the army, the temporary military conference in Friendship Town came to an end. After the meeting, Ouyang Shuo did not return to the base camp. Instead, he officially began his inspection tour in Friendship Town with Zhou Haiqun. Walking on the streets of Friendship Town, Ouyang Shuo began to calculate the cost of the army expansion. First was the one-time compensation for the barbarian warriors. The 3 batches of barbarian warriors amounted to 1,700 gold coins. In addition to the one-time subsidy of 500,000 units of grain, it was another 500 gold coins. Then there was the job change fee. 1,000 infantrymen cost 500 gold coins. 100 cavalrymen cost 150 gold coins, for a total of 650 gold coins. All these costs added up to 2,850 gold coins. The 3,000 gold coins previously reserved would be used up in one go. The next morning, Ouyang Shuo went to the mayor's office to listen to Zhou Haiqun's report on the trade with the nomadic tribes. Zhou Haiqun invited Ouyang Shuo to the main seat and sat down. He said, Sir, There's a medium-sized tribe north of Friendship Town called the Tianfeng tribe. It has more than 3,500 people and a pasture area of 1,500 square kilometers, which is larger than our territory. The chief of the Tianfeng tribe is called Dariachi. He is 35 years old and is said to be of Mongolian descent. No one knows how he ended up here. Dariachi means suppression in Mongolian. This shows the ambition and aspiration of this chief. After the construction of the moat was completed, I sent the chief administrative officer of Friendship Town as an emissary to visit Dariachi with gifts. Although Dariachi was surprised by the arrival of the messenger, he did not do anything out of line. After receiving the gifts, he received him in a very friendly manner. What made people not know whether to laugh or cry was that when the messenger returned, a group of Tianfeng tribe cavalrymen appeared on the other side of the moat. However, when they saw the wide moat, the tall city walls, and the barracks outside the city, they were immediately dumbfounded and resentfully returned. This Dariachi is really not someone to be trifled with. He is very shrewd. Interestingly, not long after the cavalrymen left, the Tianfeng tribe sent a messenger saying that they wanted to discuss trade with us. For a moment, I couldn't come to a conclusion as to what this Dariachi was planning. I wanted to report to you, but the Lord's residents said that you were in seclusion, so they used a delaying tactic. Fortunately, Your Excellency returned in time. As for how to deal with this matter, I hope Your Excellency can tell us. Ouyang Shuo furrowed his brows and said, From your description just now, this Dariachi is probably a two-faced character. I don't think it's wise to reveal the existence of our headquarters right now. How about this? You will be in charge of the trade with the Sky Abundant tribe. We only want the green beetle horse. As for the goods, whether it be food, salt, iron, or tea leaves, or even the 3-flower wine, we can use them to trade. You'll have to figure out the exact scale yourself. The general principle is as long as we can get the green beetle horses, giving them a little profit is acceptable. Zhou Haichun was pleasantly surprised and said excitedly, Understood. Please rest assured, my lord. In addition, you have to choose the location of the transaction carefully. You can build a temporary transaction place next to the moat so that both parties can be at ease. Try to make the first transaction within this week, Ouyang Shuo instructed. As for why it was within a week, it was naturally to coordinate with the subsequent military operations. Yes, Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, Haichun, it seems that choosing you to manage Friendship Town was the right choice. After 2 days of observation, I found that Friendship Town was built in an orderly manner. Even when faced with the threat of the northern nomadic tribes, the people were still calm. You were still able to think of opening the trade route under these circumstances. That's very impressive. Ouyang Shuo finally came to a conclusion after this inspection. Zhou Haichun was clearly very excited after receiving His Excellency's high praise. He said, This subordinate's achievements today are all thanks to Your Excellency's nurturing and promotion. I don't dare claim credit and will definitely do my best to protect Your Excellency. If that's the case, I am very comforted, Ouyang Shuo said in the end. On the 8th of May, Friendship Town and the Sky Abundant tribe conducted their first transaction. According to the Sky Abundant tribe's price, a high-quality green beetle horse was worth 5 gold coins. If converted to the goods in Friendship Town, it would be 5,000 units of food, 2,500 units of salt, 1,000 units of iron, or 500 units of 3-flower wine. Therefore, the purchasing power of the green beetle horse was extremely terrifying. Because it was their first transaction, both sides were more cautious. The Sky Abundant tribe was willing to use 100 high-quality green beetle horses to exchange for 100,000 units of food, 2,500 units of salt, 60,000 units of iron, and 10,000 units of 3-flower wine. This was equivalent to asking for another batch of salt. Zhou Haichun remembered Ouyang Shuo's instructions. He was willing to suffer a small loss in exchange for the green beetle horse. Therefore, this transaction could be said to be a happy one for everyone. On the Friendship Town side, they obtained the green beetle horse that they yearned for even in their dreams. On the Sky Abundant tribe side, They only used 100 war horses to obtain an unimaginable amount of goods. In order to express their gratitude, the Sky Abundant tribe additionally gifted them 3 elite green beetle horses. Each of their attributes was 40% higher than a perfect green beetle horse. Name: Perfect Green Beetle Horse, Dark Gold. Weight: 120 kg. Speed: 60 km/day. Consumption: for units of food/day. Evaluation: according to legend, the green beetle horse is the product of a union between an ancient divine insect, the green beetle, and a wild horse. As a result, the green beetle horse inherited the green beetle god's will. It runs like the wind and knows its way. It is a top-class warhorse. As expected of a top-class warhorse, the weight it could carry was double that of a normal warhorse, and its running speed was also faster. Only a warhorse like this could carry a heavy cavalry wearing the radiant armor. Name: Elite Green Beetle Horse, Purple Gold. Weight: 168 kg. Speed: 84 km/day. Cost: 5 units of food/day. Evaluation: the elite of the green beetle horses, extremely suitable as a general's mount. Ouyang Shuo gave these 100 green beetle horses to the 1st Squadron of the Cavalry Battalion. As for the 3 elite green beetle horses, they were divided between Ouyang Shuo, Lin Yi, and the 1st Squadron's captain, Li Mingliang. With the green beetle horses, the radiant armor forged by the 1st workshop could finally be put to use. The radiant armor was divided according to the complexity of the forging process. There were 4 levels: Soldier Radiant Armor, Soldier Radiant Armor, General Radiant Armor, and Commander Radiant Armor. The highest level that the 1st workshop could forge was the General Radiant Armor. Name: Soldier Radiant Armor, Gold. Type: Heavy Armor. Weight: 36 kilograms. Defense: 55. Toughness: 50. Evaluation: on the chest and back of the armor, there are oval-shaped metal plates called the round guard. They can reflect dazzling light under the sun, hence the name Radiant Armor. Name: Soldier Radiant Armor, Dark Gold. Type: Heavy Armor. Weight: 40 kg. Defense: 70. Toughness: 55. Evaluation: compared to the Soldier Radiant Armor, the Soldier Radiant Armor is more complicated. Name: General Radiant Armor, Purple Gold. Type: Heavy Armor. Weight: 45 kg. Defense: 85. Toughness: 60. Evaluation: compared to the Soldier Radiant Armor, the General Radiant Armor is more complicated and expensive. Up until now, the 1st workshop had only forged 1 set of General Radiant Armor, and naturally, it was made specifically for Ouyang Shuo. The 1st workshop's Master Wang Zhuan and a Master Tailor Mu Qingxi had spent more than a month and failed 5 times before they finally succeeded. This kind of success was partly due to luck and partly due to Qing Er's master-level skills. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to succeed. Wang Zhuan had also used this opportunity to break through to Master Blacksmith. As for the highest-level General Radiant Armor, Ouyang Shuo guessed that he would have to wait until Wang Zhuan and Qing both became Grandmasters before he could forge it. With this set of General Radiant Armor, the leather armor that Ouyang Shuo had previously worn was no longer useful, so he gave it to Zhao Sihu. Ouyang Shuo once again checked his personal attributes. Name: How Can I Have No Clothes? Title: State Scholar. Increases favorability of historical characters by 25. Territory: Shanghai Town. Occupation: General. Part-time. Level 45. Merit points: 1540/25630. Noble title: 2nd rank. Earl reputation: Fame 12850/100000. Root bone: 18. Comprehension: 21. Fortune source: 5. Charm: 8. Commander: 59 plus 10. Martial power: 22 plus 5. Intelligence: 14. Politics: 51. Talent. Locked cultivation techniques: 8. Extremes. Fist scripture: Advanced Yang Family Spear Scripture: First Glimpse: Art of War: 6. Strategies. Wu Tao volume: Skills: Advanced Gathering Technique, Beginner Shipbuilding Technique, Intermediate Diplomacy Technique, Advanced Detection Technique, Advanced Weapon Mastery, Basic Horsemanship Technique, Basic Spear Technique, Basic Archery Technique. Mount: Elite Green Beetle Horse, Purple Gold. accessory, ring of courage, black iron, barbaric strength, silver, equipment, high-quality composite bow, gold, high-quality fine iron sword, gold, high-quality fine iron spear, gold, general radiant armor, purple, gold, special items, bloodthirst talisman, stamina talisman, military talisman, substitute, doll. During this period of battle, Ouyang Shua's level had increased by another 5, reaching level 45. At the same time, his achievement and reputation points had increased to varying degrees. As for the barbaric strength accessory, it was a necklace with a pair of wild boar tusks the size of a thumb. Naturally, it was made by Magnus using the tusks of the wild boar king. Its attributes were as follows: frowny face name, barbaric strength, silver, attribute, increases martial power by 5, evaluation, high-level alchemist. Magnus used the tusks of the wild boar king. Chapter 116. On the 9th of May, the military operation codenamed Dawn officially began. After 5 days of preparation, the defense camp of Pool Town, the defense camp of Friendship Town, and the 2nd Infantry camp of the base camp were all in place. At the same time, the only cavalry company in Pool Town and the 2 cavalry companies in Friendship Town had already met up with the cavalry camp and started their joint training. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, the joint training location was not chosen in Friendship Town, but in the open area on the west side of Shanghai Town, very close to the garrison of the infantry camp. Originally, Lin Yi had suggested to cooperate with the infantry camp to wipe out 1 or 2 roving bandit camps before the operation, to train the troops' coordination level. However, Ouyang Shuo rejected it. Firstly, the troops sent out this time were all cavalry, and the main force of the attack was still the cavalry camp. There wouldn't be many problems with coordination. Secondly, if any military operations were to be carried out before the operation, it wouldn't be worth it if there were any accidents and additional casualties were caused. This dawn operation was no small matter. Ouyang Shuo had to be cautious and didn't want to rush into battle with an exhausted army. In order to not attract the attention of Tianfeng tribe, the military operation this time was prepared to cross the Friendship River from Shanghai Town straight into the heart of the small tribe on the west side. They had to kill them in one strike. At 4 in the afternoon, the Navy camp stationed in Beihai Town boarded the Mengchong battleship and went upstream, docking at the Friendship River south of the small tribe. At the same time, the 800 cavalry participating in the dawn operation set up camp on the other side of the river. On the second day, at 4 in the morning, the troops started cooking. At 5 in the morning, the troops and their horses boarded the Mengchong battleship and crossed the Friendship River. After a short rest, they went straight to the nomadic tribe on the west side. In order to ensure the secrecy of the operation, the horses' mouths were tied, and even the horses' hooves were wrapped in linen. Along the way, it was quiet, and the troops moving forward were like ghosts. After the troops moved forward slowly for 5 kilometers, they began to split into 4 groups. The middle group was naturally the cavalry camp that was in charge of the operation. The first group, which was equipped with green beetle horses, was the vanguard force. The first platoon consisted of 50 cavalrymen wearing radiant armor. Under the lead of platoon leader Li Mingliang, they ran at the very front. In order to avoid the reflection of the round protector and attract the enemy's attention, all the round protectors were wrapped in linen, and no light could be seen. Under the leadership of Battalion Commander Zhang Daniyu, the cavalry platoon of Pool Town started to move forward in a roundabout manner. In this operation, they were responsible for intercepting the nomadic tribe's escape route to the north. The north was the direction that led to the Tianjin tribe. It was also the direction where the enemy was most likely to flee, so the responsibility was the heaviest. On the right, the 1st Cavalry Platoon of Friendship Town, under the leadership of Battalion Commander Hu Yibiao, ran east. To the east of the enemy was the Sky Rich tribe. The chances of them escaping in this direction were relatively low. Their main objective was to prevent the Sky Rich tribe from discovering them. Therefore, the responsibility was equally great. On the left, the 2nd Cavalry Platoon of Friendship Town, which was also the newly formed cavalry platoon, ran to the west under the leadership of the platoon leader. To the west of the enemy, there were no other tribes, so it was the easiest. It was just a precaution. Every troop that moved out had at least one military intelligence division elite following them as a guide. After this period of hard work, the military intelligence division had long since familiarized themselves with the terrain of this area. At the same time, in order to facilitate communication at any time, the spy also brought along a messenger hummingbird. At 6:30 in the morning, all the troops arrived at their assigned positions. This time, Ouyang Shuo followed the troops as usual. He was riding an elite-grade green beetle horse and wearing the general bright armor. He looked like a heroic young general. Beside Ouyang Shuo was Lin Yi, also riding an elite cyan beetle horse, wearing the general light armor. "Report." The messenger at the front shouted in a low voice. "Speak." "Sir, the vanguard troops are approaching the enemy camp. There are no abnormalities. Please give your orders." "Everyone continue forward," Ouyang Shuo said. "Yes." 20 minutes later, the troops met up with the vanguard troops. Li Mingliang rode his horse to Ouyang Shuo's side and said, "Sir, everything went smoothly." Ouyang Shuo nodded and looked into the distance. Nomadic tribes, other than large tribes like the Tianjin tribe, had fixed settlements. The other small and medium-sized tribes usually didn't have a fixed residence. Now that it was already summer, it was the best time to graze. Wherever the sheep went, their tents would go. As a result, the nomadic camp in front of them didn't have tall walls like the cities in the Central Plains. There weren't even simple fences. Instead, it was made up of circles of tents, forming a temporary settlement. Ouyang Shuo did a rough count. There were hundreds of tents, big and small. The deeper they went, the bigger the tents were. The largest tent in the center should be the tribe leader's tent. "Did you find a cyan beetle horse?" Ouyang Shuo asked. This was the question he was most concerned about. "Found it. It's locked in their stable," Li Mingliang said excitedly. "If that's the case, then attack." Ouyang Shuo turned to Lin Yi and said coldly, "Yes." Lin Yi stood on the horse's back and pulled his bow. He lit up the fire arrow he prepared and shot it towards the enemy camp. The burning arrow streaked across the sky and directly hit the tent in the distance. Immediately, flames soared into the sky. Lin Yi's fire arrow was like a signal flare. The 500 riders drew their bows and shot the fire arrow towards the enemy camp, according to the area they were divided into. Other than a few survivors, the hundreds of tents were all set ablaze in an instant. The fire filled the sky. Many of the enemies in the tents were still asleep when they were burned alive. There were also those who were alert and woke up. One by one, they ran out of the tents in panic. Some of the calmer warriors took their weapons and ran out of the tents. Lin Yi put his bow back and took out his steel spear. He shouted, "Cavalry, kill!" He was the first to charge into the burning camp. "Kill!" The 500 riders raised their weapons and charged forward. Ouyang Shuo was the only one standing there, watching the battle calmly. The riders roamed between the tents, killing anyone who ran out. It was a bloody scene. Ouyang Shuo stood outside on his horse, not participating in the massacre. As a modern man, even after 5 years of experience, he couldn't kill without a change in his expression. Most of the people he killed were normal people who couldn't fight back. Power was poison. It could corrode anyone and turn them into a person with a heart of stone. At this moment, Ouyang Shuo finally realized the difference between adventure-type players and overlord players. He was deeply aware of just how much he had changed in less than half a year. In order to suppress the provocation of the Swift Wind tribe and establish his authority in the surrounding barbarian tribes, he chose to attack Gale Valley without hesitation. In order to get the cyan beetle horses and build a heavy cavalry unit, he chose to massacre the entire tribe without hesitation. Although he didn't participate, his hands were still stained with blood. The only consolation was that he reminded himself that this was a game, and they were just NPCs. They were just a bunch of data, using this as a fig leaf for his conscience. The sky was filled with sparks, mournful screams, and helpless shouts. It was a sad scene. Ouyang Shuo's face became more and more blurry in the flames. On the other hand, when the soldiers of the cavalry camp saw their lord standing at the door, their blood boiled. They knew that the Lord was watching them, watching his sons bravely kill the enemy. Although the nomadic tribes had organized several counterattacks, with the first platoon as the vanguard, they had failed every time and were brutally suppressed. Half an hour later, someone finally couldn't take it anymore and started to escape. Lin Yi immediately arranged for the 5th Company to attack and kill those who escaped. There were some who didn't know what was good for them. When they saw Ouyang Shuo standing outside, they wanted to fight him. Unfortunately, Ouyang Shuo's strength was no longer the same as before. Normal nomadic warriors weren't his match at all. They were easily taken care of by him. An hour later, the massacre was finally coming to an end. Other than the 1st Company, who stayed behind to clean up the mess, the other 4 companies were sent out by Lin Yi. They cooperated with the sentries and chased after the escapees, making sure that no one was left alive. Master, should we set up the scene and shift the blame to the Sky Rich tribe? Lin Yi rushed to Ouyang Shuo's side and asked. Ouyang Shuo shook his head and said, "No need. Burn everything down. Don't leave any traces. We aren't familiar with the nomadic tribes and don't know how they fight. The biggest trick is that there's nothing. If that's the case, the Sky Rich tribe will think from the perspective of the biggest beneficiary to determine the enemy. The nearby Sky Rich tribe will naturally become the biggest suspect. They definitely don't have the ability to guess that it's us. You have to know that we just traded with the Sky Rich tribe. We don't have a motive to do this." Lin Yi looked at Ouyang Shuo with admiration and said, "Master is really thoughtful." Ouyang Shuo waved his hand and said, "Make the best use of the time to clean up the battlefield and retreat as soon as possible." Yes. At 10 in the morning, all the troops gathered again. This operation could be said to be perfect. Not a single enemy survived. After the meeting, the troops took the spoils of war and returned. In this Operation Daybreak, other than the 100 stallions, there were also 300 perfect stallions and 4 elite stallions. It could be said to be a huge harvest. Other than that, there were 1,000 sheep and 3,000 sheepskins. Chapter 117. When they arrived at the Friendship River, the Navy's Mengchong warship was already waiting for them. Because there were too many spoils of war, they had to make more than 10 trips before they were all transferred. Because they were only in charge of the transport, the Navy's commander Pei Donglai did not come. When the last cavalryman crossed the Friendship River, the Mengchong warship immediately set off and returned to the North Sea town encampment. In order not to be suspected by the Sky Abundant tribe, Ouyang Shu ordered the cavalry to immediately return to the encampment. Similarly, the green beetle horses they obtained this time naturally could not be given to the cavalry camp immediately. Otherwise, it would be like they were trying to hide something. Since they did not have enough radiant armor, it did not matter if they rode the horses or not. The 100 horses were moved to the Gale Valley Horse Farm by the carriage department on the same day. As for the 304 horses and over 1,000 sheep, they were raised in the farm on the west side of Shanghai town. The farm on the west side had been expanded several times and now occupied an area of 50 square kilometers. In this farm, there were pig pens, sheep pens, and now horse pens. It was getting more and more lively. For convenience, Ouyang Shuo simply named this farm the West City Farm. In Shanghai town, the daybreak operation did not cause too much of a commotion because the news was blocked. Only a few people knew the inside story, so it was very calm. On the other hand, the nomadic tribes were in an uproar because of the extermination. God bless Lake, Sky Boundary Tribe's tent. Great Khan. According to the scouts, the Tianlian tribe in the southwest was reduced to ashes overnight. More than 800 tribesmen were killed, and not a single one survived. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with a tall build and a full beard. He was one of the 3 great generals of the Sky Boundary Tribe, Rakshin, known as the Lion of the Grasslands. The Sky Boundary Tribe had over 30,000 tribesmen and 12,000 soldiers. Among them, the most elite 2,000 were the Khan's personal guards. They were led by the Khan's most trusted general and also one of the 3 great generals of the Sky Boundary Tribe, known as the Grey Wolf of the Grasslands. The remaining 10,000 soldiers were divided into the east and west sides of the Sky Boundary Tribe. Each side had 5,000 soldiers, and they were responsible for guarding the east and west sides of the Sky Boundary Tribe. Rakshan was the commander of the west side of the Sky Boundary Tribe. The commander of the eastern part of the town was Daichin, one of the last 3 generals of the Heavens Boundary Tribe. He was known as the Black Tiger of the Grassland. The Tianlian tribe, which had been exterminated by the Mountain Sea town, was under the jurisdiction of the western part of the town, so Rakshan was the first to receive the news. Rakshan did not dare to delay and immediately reported to the tribe's great Khan Monk. Meng was close to 50 years old. Among the tribes of the grassland, he was considered a long-lived person. Wrinkles had already crept up on his once handsome face. His thick, curly hair had also begun to turn white. It was a clear sign that the human lord in front of him had truly aged. Even so, no one dared to show any disrespect to Khan Monkey. This was not just because of the prestige that came with the title of Khan, but a true reverence that came from the bottom of his heart. Munch inherited the throne at the age of 14 and took over the scepter and crown left by his father. At that time, the strongest person in the tribe, Liu, held the power in the tribe. He bullied Mengku because he was young and treated Mengku like a puppet. Mengku remained calm and collected. On the surface, he was feigning civility with Jelu, but he was secretly accumulating his strength and nurturing his own people. 2 years later, Monk felt that the time was ripe. He took advantage of one time when Jelu was drunk in the tent and killed him with a single slash. After killing Jelu, Monk boldly used his own people to cleanse Jelu's party of blood and gain control of the tribe. In the 30 years that followed, Monk's methods became more and more ruthless and bloody. Just the number of tribes that had been exterminated was no less than 5. Needless to say, which of these medium-sized tribes had not been suppressed by Mengku? Yet, these tribes dared to be angry, but did not dare to say anything. From this, one could see Mengku's reputation. No wonder people called Mengku the Bloody Butcher behind his back. The other tribes were afraid of Mengku and slandered him behind his back. But to the Sky Order tribe, Mengku was their supreme king, the god that they believed in. When Mengku first inherited the throne, the Sky Order tribe was only a medium-sized tribe with 4,000 to 5,000 people. It was under Mengku's rule that the Sky Order tribe gradually developed and strengthened. They killed countless strong enemies and finally became the undisputed overlord of this vast grassland. All the tribes respected Mengku as the Khan of the grassland. Therefore, under the throne of this seemingly old Khan, there was actually an ocean of blood. Therefore, even a fierce general like Rakshasa had to be careful in front of Mengku. When Mengku inherited the throne, Rakshasa was just a newborn child. Rakshasa grew up with Mengku's fame and had a heartfelt reverence for Mengku. At this moment, this old man was sitting on the throne with his back straight, not allowing himself to have the slightest bit of fatigue. After listening to Rakshasa's report, he opened his slightly turbid eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Tianlian tribe? I remember that not long ago, they just obtained 100 green beetle horses from us, right?" Rakshasa's heart stirred, and he said in a deep voice, "That's right. Great Khan, do you mean that the Tianlian tribe was coveted by others because of this batch of war horses?" Cough, cough. Rakshasa, when you look at a problem, you must find the root of the problem. The Tianlian tribe is one of the smallest tribes in the grassland. There are no treasures, and the pasture they occupy is not lush with water and grass. What's there to covet? Monk coughed and continued. The great Khan is wise. Rakshasa respectfully said. Are there any clues left at the scene? Monk asked. Rakshasa shook his head and said, There's nothing left at the scene except ashes. The green beetle horses, as well as the original horses and sheep of the Tianlian tribe, have all disappeared. According to the residual heat of the ashes, this attack should have happened around 7 in the morning. The enemy should be a group of cavalry. Aside from horse hoof prints, there are very few footprints left. Moreover, this should be a premeditated surprise attack. There are many remains of corpses in the burnt tents. This means that these people were burned to death in their sleep. Rakshasa was obviously an experienced military general. Just from the traces left at the scene, he was able to restore the scene to 70 to 80%. He wasn't as bold as he seemed on the surface. Fortunately, Ouyang Shuo and his party didn't do anything superfluous and deliberately mislead them. Otherwise, it was very likely that Rakshasa would see through them. Are there any survivors? Monk didn't express his opinion and asked again. Rakshasa regretfully shook his head and said, "The enemy this time is extremely cunning. They must have arranged a guard outside the perimeter. They are also very decisive. There's not a single survivor in the entire Tianlian tribe. Many of them ran far away from the camp before they were caught and killed. One or two even ran to the edge of the pasture, but in the end, they couldn't escape their fate." Monk's turbid eyes suddenly became sharp. He coldly said, "It seems that another tribe is unwilling to be left out and wants to challenge our position as the overlord." Rakshasa's heart trembled. He asked in surprise, "The Great Khan means that it's a medium-sized tribe?" Rakshasa was very clear that once this guess was confirmed, it would be a battle to the death. The Tianlian tribe has just received our support, and now they're exterminated. If this isn't a provocation, then what else can it be? As for that batch of green beetle horses that disappeared, it's just a cover-up." Monk coldly said. A thick smell of blood spread out from his body without warning. Rakshasa was stunned. Even a military general like him couldn't bear the pressure of the Great Khan. Barely standing up, Rakshasa calmed his mind and said, "To the south of the Tianlian tribe is the great river, to the west is the wilderness, and to the north is us. Only the sky-abundant tribe shares a border with them. Does the Great Khan suspect that this extermination was caused by the sky-abundant tribe?" Monk expressionlessly sat on the throne and looked into the distance. He didn't speak for a long time. Rakshasa knew that the Great Khan was thinking about a problem, so he quietly stood at the side and didn't dare to disturb him. 10 minutes later, Monk retracted his gaze and looked at Rakshasa. He said in a hoarse voice, "The sky-abundant tribe's Dari Achi is very shrewd. Although he is ambitious, he will never act as the vanguard. He's a poisonous snake that quietly crouches in a dark corner and silently watches us kill each other. Only when everyone is exhausted will he deliver the fatal blow. It's a bit far-fetched to say that this incident was caused by the sky-abundant tribe. It doesn't match his style." Rakshasa was confused. This general was extraordinary in leading troops into battle, and his mind wasn't simple either. But he wasn't good at this kind of mutual deception. Then, according to the Great Khan, who is the culprit? Rakshasa asked. Monk shook his head and said, "Before we get further information, it's not wise to make unnecessary guesses, and it won't help us solve the problem. The current plan is to gather information while strengthening our defenses against the medium-sized tribes. The best strategy is to respond to all changes with constancy and to stop them with stillness." Although he was called the Bloody Butcher, Monk was clearly not a reckless person. If he wasn't cautious, he wouldn't have made it this far. "Yes," Rakshasa nodded in response. "But Rakshasa, I have a premonition that a bigger storm is about to hit us. This storm will be fiercer than any in the past. We must be on guard," Monk suddenly said. Rakshasa's heart trembled again. In the eyes of the sky-abundant tribespeople, Monk was their god. His premonitions could almost be regarded as divine decrees. Therefore, Rakshasa was certain of this. In the end, he was a general, and Rakshasa wasn't good at deception. But if it was a real battle, he wasn't afraid. He said in a loud voice, "Please rest assured, Great Khan, no matter who it is, as long as they dare to challenge our sky-abundant tribe, they must be prepared to be exterminated by us at any time." Monk nodded and didn't say anything else. He waved for Rakshasa to leave. Chapter 118. Ouyang Shaw didn't know about the conversation that took place in the Tianji tribe's tent, and neither did the chief of the Tianfeng tribe, Dariachi. Lianzhou Basin, Tianfeng tribe's tent. Hu Chi-tu, what do you think about the extermination of the Tianlian tribe? Dariachi asked. Sitting at the lower end of the tent was a young general who was less than 30 years old. His figure was tall and straight, and his face was resolute and handsome. His slightly curled hair added a bit of masculine charm to him. He was Hu Chi-tu, the only chiliarch of the Sky-Rich tribe. Other than the personal guards of the tribe leader, he commanded all of the troops of the Sky-Rich tribe. In fact, after receiving the news that the Tianlian tribe had been annihilated, Huchitu had rushed to the scene of the incident as soon as possible. According to the traces left at the scene, his speculation was basically the same as General Lakeshan of the Sky Order tribe. The only difference was that Huchitu knew that this matter was not done by his tribe. In Huchitu's eyes, the whole thing was confusing. The surrounding tribes didn't seem to have any motive to do this, but it just happened. Patriarch, this matter is very strange. I suspect that some tribe is trying to frame us, and that's why they purposely committed such a shocking crime right beside us, Huchitu said cautiously. Dariachi frowned and said in a deep voice, "Yeah, this man has ulterior motives. He's clearly trying to sow discord between us and the Tianji tribe." "Then, Patriarch, who do you think did it?" Huchitu asked. Dariachi shook his head and said, "Hard to say. It could be a tribe from the west or a tribe from the north. It's even possible that the Sky Order tribe did it themselves." "Sky Order tribe?" Huchitu exclaimed. "Not bad." Dariachi's face was cloudy and uncertain as he said, "That old fox Mengku, there's nothing he can't do in order to suppress our medium-sized tribes. Don't forget, he was the Bloody Butcher. As long as he can create an excuse to suppress us, a small tribe is nothing in his eyes." Huchitu still couldn't get over it and said, "Patriarch, I still don't understand. If it really was the Sky's Order tribe, they should have already sent people to question us. But until now, there's still no movement at all." "Yes, that's what puzzles me the most. That's why I can't understand it," Dariachi said in a deep voice. No matter how shrewd he was, he couldn't see through the fog in front of him. "Could it be the new neighbor from the south?" Yukitu said boldly. Dariachi was startled, but he immediately shook his head and said, "I don't think so. Firstly, they didn't have the strength to do so. Otherwise, they wouldn't be defending the city. Secondly, they have no motive to commit the crime. It's not like you didn't see it. They still hope to maintain normal trade relations with us nomadic tribes." Huchitu didn't believe it himself. He had just said it casually. After hearing the clan leader's explanation, all of his doubts disappeared. Unfortunately, the biggest mystery was still unsolved. No matter what, since it has already happened, there will definitely be a follow-up. As for how the situation would change in the future, it was still hard to say. However, no matter how the situation changes, we still have to return to the competition of strength. Dariachi concluded and solemnly said, "Hyukitu, the army cannot relax for even a moment. During this period of time, you have to increase the strength of the border patrols. In addition, in order to increase the strength of the army, you can consider maintaining trade relations with the friendship town in the south and exchange as much iron ore as possible." "Yes," Hyukitu said loudly. After Huchitu left the tent, Dariachi looked at the top of the tent. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the tent and see the distant horizon. He saw the pearl sitting in the middle of the basin, the blessed lake. He muttered to himself, "The storm is coming. God of the grassland, is this the opportunity for our Tianfeng tribe to rise?" 11th of May, North Sea Town's Harbor. After a month of construction, North Sea Town's Harbor, North Sea Harbor, was officially completed. North Sea Harbor was located near the estuary of the river. It was a natural harbor with a natural sheltered bay for ships to anchor. North Sea Harbor was a military harbor. It was mainly used by the Navy to anchor warships, resupply, shelter from the wind, and obtain support such as combat, technology, and logistics. Therefore, North Sea Harbor was also known as the naval base. It was equipped with the corresponding equipment and defense facilities. The Navy's barracks had been moved here after North Sea Harbor was completed. At the current stage, North Sea Harbor still played the role of a fishing harbor. It allowed fishing boats to dock, anchor, shelter from the wind, load and unload their catch, and replenish their fishing needs and daily necessities. It could also process and transport the catch, repair the fishing boats, manufacture fishing gear, and rest for the crew. To the south of North Sea Harbor was the Bibu Bay of the South Sea. The largest island in the Bibu Bay was naturally Jingzhou Island. After magnifying it by 10 times in the game, it occupied an area of about 350,000 square kilometers, which was 15 times the size of the Lianzhou Basin. Apart from Jingzhou Island, there were also some small islands and reefs in the Bibu Bay. Most of these islands and reefs were desolate and uninhabited. There were places where even birds wouldn't take a shit. However, there were also some islands that had formed a relatively complete ecosystem with inland lakes or rivers. They had sufficient fresh water and the basic conditions for survival. Such islands naturally became the most ideal pirate stronghold. Especially after the game map was expanded by 10 times, many sesame-sized islands and reefs in the real world instantly became islands suitable for human habitation. It was precisely because of this that Ouyang Shu ordered the Navy to start surveying the surrounding waters as soon as possible. He did not dare to easily make conclusions based on his experience in the real world. In the northwest corner of the Bibu Bay, near the border between Vietnam and China, there was an island called Moonchild Island. Moonchild Island occupied an area of about 50 square kilometers, which was comparable to the territory of a level 2 village. If it was in the real world, it would be a small island with an area of only 5 square kilometers. On Moonchild Island lived a group of pirates, numbering about 3,000. This group of pirates called themselves Black Sharks, and their leader was called Blackbeard. Because Moonchild Island was geographically closer to Vietnam, their main target of plunder was the fishing villages along the coast of Vietnam. On the coast of Vietnam, among the Lord-class players, Blackbeard's fierce name had already spread far and wide. In the 5 months since the start of the game, the number of player villages destroyed by the Black Shark pirates was definitely no less than 30. Of course, the Black Shark pirates did not dare to provoke the system cities along the coast. On this day, no one knew why Blackbeard had gone crazy. He actually gave up his old habit of plundering and prepared to plunder the coast of China in the north. Needless to say, before Black Shark's pirate ship approached North Sea Town, it had already been discovered by the patrolling Mengchong battleship of the Navy. When the soldiers on the battleship saw the approaching pirate ship, they did not dare to be negligent. They prepared to meet the enemy while firing an emergency signal flare. This time, Blackbeard brought a total of 3 pirate ships, carrying more than 300 pirates. Seeing such a standard warship like the Mengchong battleship had already surprised Blackbeard. When he looked at the North Sea harbor that had already been built in the distance, he was even more surprised. Such a formation could only be found in system cities. On the other side, seeing the signal flare fired by the patrol ship, Pei Donglai immediately led the remaining 4 Mengchong battleships out of the North Sea harbor. The Mengchong battleship was long and narrow, fast, and highly mobile. It was specially used to attack enemy ships. The entire cabin and the deck of the Mengchong battleship was covered with cowhide, which could be used for fireproofing. There were several holes on both sides for paddling and for the oarsmen to row the ship. Above the deck, there were 3 layers of cabins, which were also covered with cowhide to prevent enemy fire. Every layer of cabins had crossbow windows and spear holes, which could be used to attack enemies from all directions. Thus, in less than 20 minutes, while Blackbeard was still hesitating, the 4 Mengchong battleships that Pei Donglai brought had already met up with the patrol ship. Seeing the superior navigation capabilities of the enemy's ship, coupled with the fact that the strength of both sides had changed, Blackbeard was very cautious without knowing the enemy's strength. He was able to pick up and let go, and immediately ordered the pirate ship to turn around and return. Seeing that the enemy wanted to escape, Pei Donglai ordered the Navy camp to symbolically chase after them for 5 kilometers. After firing a few rounds of arrows, he ordered the Navy camp to stop and immediately return. The reason why Pei Donglai did this was because the difference in strength between them and the enemy was not large, and it was difficult to form an overwhelming advantage. Secondly, the Navy camp had not experienced actual combat. If they really tangled together, they might not be able to win against these battle-hardened pirates. The art of war said, do not chase a cornered enemy, not to mention a group of pirates who had not lost the ability to fight at all. After returning to North Sea port, Pei Donglai immediately increased the strength of the patrol, from 1 warship to 2 warships, 5 warships taking turns to patrol. After arranging the defense, Pei Donglai wrote an official letter about what happened today and sent it to the headquarters, asking the leader to make a decision. On the 12th of the 5th month, Ouyang Shuo received an urgent letter from the North Sea Town Navy. After reading the letter, Ouyang Shuo fell into deep thought. Without a doubt, North Sea Town had been exposed to the pirates. From now on, North Sea Town would not be able to rest easy and develop in peace. In order to protect North Sea Town and ensure the safety of this strategic location, Ouyang Shuo replied to Pei Donglai, requesting the Navy to immediately expand another Navy camp and officially establish the North Sea Fleet. At the same time, he requested Pei Donglai to quickly find out the background of the pirates, and it would be best if he could find their lair. As for the pirates, only by annihilating their strength and thoroughly destroying their headquarters could they truly be at ease. Otherwise, who knew when they would suddenly appear and launch a surprise attack? Then how could North Sea Town develop in peace? Chapter 119. While Ouyang Shuo was still worrying about North Sea Town, a system announcement resounded throughout the China region. System announcement. The China region has successfully promoted 100 townships, triggering the campaign system. The first campaign, the Battle of Zhuolu, will officially begin in 3 days. Please look forward to it. Friendly reminder. The Battle of Zhuolu is a non-mandatory campaign scenario mission. Only township-level territories and above are eligible to participate. The players were in an uproar. They knew nothing about the so-called campaign system. There was no information about the campaign on the official website. Even Di Chun and the others knew nothing about the campaign settings. Compared to the territory defense mission, the campaign scenario mission was much smaller in scale, but it was definitely not less exciting than the former. Due to the restrictions set by the system, only the top 100 territories in the China region were eligible to participate in the mission. The territories that were still struggling at the village stage could only protest helplessly. As for the territories that met the requirements, they were all eager to get started. Those who were indignant naturally wanted to use these 3 days to see if they could promote their territory to a first-grade town. Compared to the confusion of the others, Ouyang Shuo understood. The most unique gameplay of Earth on Earth, the campaign map, was finally going to be activated. In his previous life, the Overlord players described the campaign map as a dimensional war. This showed how exciting the campaign map was. The so-called campaign map was somewhat similar to the scenario mission. The system would select a particular battle in history and use it as a basis to deduce a temporary dimensional map. Overlord players who met the requirements could bring their troops through the teleportation array and choose a faction to join the campaign. In the campaign map, one could see many famous historical figures and follow them to participate in the bloody war of the past. As long as one had enough wisdom and strength, one could even change the direction of history and reverse the war. This kind of immersive feeling was undoubtedly very attractive. Generally speaking, there would only be one campaign in a dynasty. When the campaign of a dynasty ended, the historical figures of that dynasty would appear in the wilderness and join the game. Therefore, the later the campaign, the more historical figures there would be in the wilderness. The chances of Overlord players recruiting historical figures would greatly increase. Another benefit of the campaign map was, of course, the achievement points. The later stages of the game, the more difficult it would be for players to raise their noble ranks. Take Ouyang Shuo, for example. He was now a 2nd-rank Earl, the highest-ranking player in the game. However, it was still extremely difficult for him to become a 1st-rank Count. There was no need to even mention the Marquis, which required an astronomical number of merit points. The battle map provided an opportunity for Lord players to earn achievement points. For every battle, the system would rank the players according to their contributions. The higher one's rank was, the more merit points they would receive. The top 10 would also receive additional rewards. The most attractive thing about the battle campaign map was not the things mentioned above. For a lord, a famous and valiant general in history was what they yearned for the most. In the battle map, players had the chance to trigger the taming quest of historical characters. As long as they completed the quest, they could tame them and bring them back to their territory. Killing God by Qi, Chubawang Xiangyu, war god Zhao Zilong, war god Li Jing, and other generals that everyone was familiar with would all appear on the battle map. Just thinking about it made one's blood boil. At this stage of the game, the rarity of historical characters was something that everyone had experienced. Even for a territory like Shanghai Town, which had a deep foundation, apart from Shi Wansui, who had been rewarded with the village-building quest, only two king-level historical characters, Fan Zhongyan and Tian Wenjing, had appeared in the next 6 months. From this, one could see how rare they were. After the system announcement was made, all the Lord players in the China region received a system prompt. Naturally, Ouyang Shuo was no exception. System prompt. In order to coordinate with the activation of the battle campaign system, the system will build a teleportation matrix for your territory for free. Please select the location to build it. Friendly reminder, this teleportation matrix will be preserved permanently. At the same time, it can also be used to teleport between territories. Please select the location carefully. With a flash of blue light, a holographic map of Shanghai Town appeared before Ouyang Shuo. The location to build the teleportation matrix was very particular. First of all, the teleportation matrix could not be built indoors. Thus, an open area had to be chosen. Moreover, for the convenience of teleportation, there had to be enough space. Otherwise, it would be crowded. However, the teleportation matrix could not be built in the wild. That was because the teleportation matrix could be destroyed. In future territorial wars, if the enemy destroyed the teleportation matrix, their allies would not be able to teleport over as reinforcements. In the end, Ouyang Shuo decided to build the teleportation matrix on the east side of the square of the Lord's Mansion. Not only was the area spacious, but it was also close to the military area. System prompt. Teleportation matrix construction location selection completed. Teleportation matrix automatically forming. System prompt. Teleportation matrix construction complete. Please check for yourself. Ouyang Shuo walked out of the Lord's Mansion and saw a huge teleportation matrix already standing on the east side of the square. The entire teleportation matrix was shaped like a disc. It had a diameter of about 10 meters. It was made of neither stone nor jade. It looked very simple and unadorned. At the core of the disc was a black and white Tai Chi pattern. It was constantly rotating in a clockwise direction. In the middle of the disc was the 8 trigrams pattern. The outermost circle was the heavenly stems and earthly branches. 4 bronze statues stood in the 4 directions of the teleportation matrix. They were the azure dragon in the east, the white tiger in the west, the vermilion bird in the south, and the black tortoise in the north. The teleportation matrix used the 4 spirits as nodes to form a 3-dimensional protective screen. Those without authorization would not be able to enter the teleportation matrix. Ouyang Shuo approached the teleportation matrix. He placed his right hand on the screen and started setting up the teleportation matrix. System prompt. Please select the person with authorization to activate the teleportation matrix. Currently, he was the only player in Shanghai Town. Hence, Ouyang Shuo had set the authorization to activate the teleportation matrix to him alone. System prompt. Please select the territory's teleportation mode. You can choose one of the 3 teleportation modes: free teleportation mode, unauthorized teleportation mode, or war teleportation mode. The protective screen of the teleportation matrix was not two-way. In other words, it could prevent people without authorization from entering the teleportation matrix. However, it could not prevent people from coming out of the teleportation matrix. Hence, for the territory's safety, it was necessary to set a restriction on the teleportation mode. Free teleportation mode was the teleportation mode with the least restriction. It meant that anyone from one's ally could teleport over at any time without the other party's permission. Unless it was an iron-blooded ally, very few lords would choose this method. This was because there was no guarantee that any member of one's ally would be reliable. If one's ally was bribed by one's opponent or enemy, the other party could use the ally's teleportation matrix to infiltrate one's territory. If one was careful, one might not even be able to detect it. This was undoubtedly very dangerous. Given Ouyang Shua's cautious nature, he naturally would not choose this teleportation mode. In order to guard against this possibility of infiltration, there was a second teleportation mode. That was unauthorized teleportation mode. In this teleportation mode, if the other party wanted to teleport to one's territory, they would need one's permission. That way, you'll know who's about to be teleported and when they'll arrive. With this information, as long as one was prepared, it would be very difficult for the other party to sabotage. Of course, if one was more careful, one could also choose the third teleportation mode, war teleportation mode. In this teleportation mode, the other party would only be able to teleport over with one's permission if there was a territorial war and reinforcements were needed. At other times, it could not be teleported over. This mode was undoubtedly very suitable for allies who did not have enough trust in one another. After all, even if it was unauthorized teleportation mode, there was still the possibility of the other party infiltrating and sabotaging it. Similarly, for those purely military alliances, war teleportation mode was also very suitable. The two parties only agreed to help each other out. As for other economic and cultural exchanges, there was no need to discuss them. Select the unauthorized teleportation mode. Ouyang Shua said, although the various members of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas had not established a high level of trust, Ouyang Shua still believed that he had the ability to control the risk. After all, the Military Intelligence Department and the Public Order Department were not to be trifled with. If an ally was really bribed, Ouyang Shua believed that the other party would not be able to cause much trouble. After all, the third teleportation mode, no matter how one looked at it, was a bit like seclusion. System notification. Do you want to activate additional teleportation mode? Regardless of which of the three teleportation modes was chosen, the precondition was that the teleportation was between allies. If there was no alliance, then no matter what, it would be impossible to teleport to the other party's territory. However, if one's friends or talents that one wanted to recruit needed to be teleported over, what would one do at that time? In this regard, the system was still very humane. In addition to these three teleportation modes, there was also an additional teleportation mode. The so-called additional teleportation mode meant that the Lord could directly add the name of the person that one wanted to teleport over to one's territory. This way, the other party would be able to teleport to one's territory through any teleportation formation. Activate, Ouyang Shua said without hesitation. Chapter 120. After setting up the teleportation formation, Ouyang Shua looked at the teleportation fees. The teleportation fee for the battle map was 1 gold coin per person. The teleportation fee between territories was 1 gold coin per person during times of war and 10 gold coins per person during times of war. The additional teleportation fee was 20 gold coins per person. All of these fees were for one-way teleportation. In other words, if one wanted to visit an ally, the teleportation fee would be 20 gold coins per person. All of these teleportation fees would be collected by the system, and the Lord wouldn't get a single cent. Of course, there was nothing to complain about. After all, even the teleportation formation was built by the system for free. System prompt. Please select the method of payment for teleportation fees. As mentioned earlier, the teleportation formation charged both ways. It was just like express delivery in the real world. One could choose whether the sender or the receiver would pay for the delivery fee. There was nothing much to say about the teleportation fees for the battle map. Ouyang Shua chose to pay for the teleportation fees between territories during times of war and for the return trip during times of war. As for the additional teleportation fees, since it was a one-way teleportation, it would naturally be paid for by the town as well. With the town's financial resources, Ouyang Shua could choose to pay for all teleportation fees. However, as the leader of the Mountain and Sea Alliance, he couldn't do that. He had to consider the feelings of his other allies. The setting of the teleportation fees would undoubtedly become a benchmark for the other allies. If Ouyang Shuo relied on his financial resources to be a good person, then the other allies would definitely follow suit and pay for the teleportation fees for their allies. Otherwise, they would be looked down upon. These fees might not be much for the town, but they could become a financial burden for the other lords. This was something that he didn't want to see happen. Therefore, as a lord, especially the leader of the alliance, he had to understand the meaning behind the saying, going too far is as bad as not going far enough. Otherwise, it was very likely that he would end up doing something bad out of good intentions. After setting up the teleportation fees, Ouyang Shuo heard another system prompt. System prompt. Please select the troops to participate in the first battle. Description. The number of troops a lord can lead is directly related to his title. A third-rank viscount can lead up to 100 troops, a second-rank viscount can lead up to 200, and a first-rank viscount can lead up to 300. A third-rank earl can lead up to 500 troops, a second-rank earl can lead up to 1,000, and a first-rank earl can lead up to 3,000. A third-rank marquis can lead up to 10,000 troops, a second-rank marquis can lead up to 20,000, and a first-rank marquis can lead up to 50,000. The duke does not have a limit on the number of soldiers he can bring. He can freely choose the number of soldiers he wants. Ouyang Shuo was now a second-rank earl. In other words, he could bring 1,000 soldiers into battle. Including the naval battalion that was about to expand, the regular army of Shanghai Town had already reached a scale of 4,000 people. He still had to discuss with Gu Hongliang which troops to bring to the battle. After leaving the teleportation formation, Ouyang Shuo sent a messenger pigeon to the 4 allies of the Mountain Sea Alliance, inviting them to gather in Mountain Sea Town the next morning to discuss important matters. To be honest, it was difficult for Ouyang Shuo to make such a decision. This way, it would be equivalent to completely exposing the Mountain Sea Town to their allies, completely unveiling the mysterious veil of the Mountain Sea Town. However, as the leader of the alliance, Ouyang Shuo felt that he had to shoulder this responsibility. That was the only way to truly establish mutual trust between the allies and bring everyone together as one. After returning to the Lord's mansion, Ouyang Shuo summoned the 4 chiefs to prepare for the first meeting of the Tianshan Sea Alliance tomorrow. Since it was a gathering, there was naturally no lack of sightseeing. Although they were allies, what could be seen, what couldn't be seen, and to what extent could be seen, these were all things that needed to be arranged in advance. Consonance Town, Conference Hall. Alliance Master Wui has invited us to Shanghai Town tomorrow to discuss the war. Which one of you wants to go with me? Let me say this first. Qingyi must accompany me. Bai Hua looked around and said. Cyane nodded and remained silent. Violet chuckled and said, I didn't expect him to allow us to visit Shanghai Town so generously. I don't want to miss such a lively event. What? What's there to see? Aren't territories all the same? I'm not going. Red Eagle said. Bai Huan nodded and said, All right, we'll let Hong Ying guard the house. The 3 of us will go to Shanghai Town tomorrow. Milan Town. Mayor's office. Sister, come with me to Shanghai Town tomorrow, Mu Lanyue said with a smile. Mu Guiying looked at Mu Lanyue dotingly and said, What? You don't dare to go alone? Mulan Lanyue nodded and said innocently, Yes. What if that way you Wui is a big bad guy? I'll only be at ease if Big Sister is with me. All right, I'll go with you. Similar conversations were happening in Dragon-Seeking Town and Black Lion Town. Shanghai Town, Council Chamber. Everyone, you already know about the teleportation array that appeared in the square, right? Ouyang Shuo asked. Yes. Does the Lord know what's going on? Fan Zhongyan asked. Ouyang Shuo nodded and explained about the teleportation array and the battle map. He then said, This Shuolu battle is of utmost importance to us. We cannot afford to lose. What does the military office think of the troops participating in the battle? Gu Hongliang pondered for a moment and said, First of all, this is a land battle. The Navy camp will definitely not be of use. In addition, the situation with the nomadic tribes has been unstable recently. The cavalry camp has great responsibility and should not be moved lightly. Therefore, I suggest that the troops participating in the battle should be mainly infantry, with cavalry as support. Among the infantry, the archers should be prioritized. Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, Sir is right. Thus, this is how the troops will be assembled. From the 3 city defense camps, 2 archer platoons and 3 crossbowman platoons will be deployed as the main offensive force. From the infantry camp, 3 infantry platoons will be deployed. One of the platoons will be equipped with infantry armor to act as the frontline defense force. Finally, 2 cavalry platoons will be deployed from the cavalry camp to provide support. In addition, a reconnaissance team will be deployed from the Military Intelligence Division to accompany the troops. The specific coordination of the troops will be handled by the military office and the various battalions. Understood. Gu Hongliang agreed and asked, Sir, how should we arrange the generals for this battle? Which general to assign to the expedition was a sensitive issue. With Gu Hongliang's qualifications, he did not dare to make the decision on his own. Even the 2 intermediate generals, Lin Yi and Pei Donglai, were on par with Gu Hongliang in terms of qualifications and ability, not to mention a special class general like Shi Wansui. Ouyang Shuo pondered for a moment and said, I will personally lead this battle. Commander Gu will be the strategist. As for the other generals, among the infantry, Shi Wansui will be the main general and Zhao Sihu will be his deputy. Among the cavalry, Lin Yi will be the main general and there will be no deputy. As for the Military Intelligence Division, Song San will personally take charge. Because the battle was a situational mission, the flow of time was not the same as the main map. So Ouyang Shuo did not specifically arrange for the defense of the city. Gu Hongliang nodded and did not comment. After the meeting, the military office will gather all the troops together as soon as possible and conduct joint training. Also, the combat division, armor division, and crossbow division will be responsible for the logistics, Ouyang Shuo ordered. Understood, Gu Hongliang said. After the discussion, Ouyang Shuo continued. Tomorrow morning, there will be a group of guests visiting our Shanghai town. These people are our allies. How do you plan to receive them, big brother? Yingyu asked. Tomorrow's itinerary, I want to arrange it like this. First, there will be a simple welcoming ceremony at the portal. After that, there will be a formal alliance ceremony. After that, we will bring them to Shanghai town for a tour. The tour will be limited to the headquarters. Finally, there will be a meeting in the conference hall to discuss the battle, Ouyang Shuo said. The 4 commanders' expressions changed. This itinerary was not simple at all. Time is tight, and the mission is heavy. Here, I do a simple division of labor. There is no need to prepare for the welcoming ceremony. Just follow me to welcome them. Mr. Sheng Jiaoyang will be in charge of the alliance ceremony, and the supplies department will cooperate. The only requirement is that it must be grand and grand. As for the tour, except for the military zone, there will be no restricted areas. Everything will be open to our allies. The military office will be in charge of the preparation for the final meeting, Ouyang Shuo said with a smile. Yes. Those who were called responded one after another. Take this opportunity. The military office will arrange a simple military review. The target of the review will be the 1,000 soldiers who will be going to war this time. Take this opportunity to show our allies our weapons and equipment. The finance department will need to be prepared. We might need to discuss the price of various equipment with them. Ouyang Shuo suddenly thought, why not take this opportunity to start the military arms business in Shanghai town? Gu Hongliang immediately agreed, but Yingyu was a little hesitant. Born in a merchant family, she was not sensitive to the price of various weapons and equipment, so she asked directly, Big brother, do you have a price in mind? Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, in terms of armor, the radiant armor is not for sale, so let's not talk about it for now. The infantry armor set is 25 gold coins. In terms of weapons, a tang sword is 5 gold coins, a longbow or hornbow is 10 gold coins, and a divine arm crossbow is 15 gold coins. Ouyang Shuo's price was not considered from the perspective of cost, but based on the market supply and demand. With Ouyang Shuo's explanation, Yingyu knew what to do, so she said with a smile, all right, big brother, don't worry and leave it to the finance department. I guarantee that the mission will be completed. Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, there is one more thing. The finance department will hand over the gold from the Moon Wolf Mountain mine in advance to raise some funds. The funds in my hands have dried up. Yes. Inu nodded and said. Chapter 121. May 13th, 9 o'clock in the morning. Shanghai Town's teleportation array. Ouyang Shuo led the 4 leaders of Shanghai Town to the side of the teleportation array to welcome his allies. The first to arrive were Mu Lanyue and Mu Guing, who were closest to Shanghai Town. This was Ouyang Shuo's first time seeing Mu Lanyue. She was about 18 or 19 years old and wore a light blue dress. Her long hair hung down to her shoulders and was tied up with a piece of blue silk. A strand of black hair hung in front of her chest. Her eyes sparkled and revealed a pure smile. The faintly discernible blush on the sides of her cheeks created a kind of delicate and adorable appearance that was as pure as the petals of a flower. Her entire person was like a butterfly fluttering in the wind, yet also like clear and penetrating ice and snow. Ouyang Shuo couldn't imagine that such a cute girl was one of the 3 overlords of Lianzhou Basin in his previous life. In his previous life, Mu Lanyue was rumored to be an unusually cold woman who rarely got close to players. Ouyang Shuo couldn't guess what happened that made Mu Lanyue's temperament change so much. Behind Mu Lanyue stood a valiant and imposing female general. She was dressed in military attire and was holding a red tasseled spear. She exuded a heroic spirit that could overwhelm any man. Needless to say, she was the famous female general of the Yang clan, Mu Guing. After the 2 of them walked out of the teleportation array, Ouyang Shuo greeted them warmly and said with a smile, "Welcome to Shanghai Town. You must be Lord Mu Lanyue and General Mu Guing, right?" "Ah, how did you recognize us?" "I haven't introduced myself yet," Mu Lanyue said in surprise. Ouyang Shuo nodded at Mu Guing behind Mu Lanyue and said, "I don't know the others, but the heroine General Mu Guing would definitely recognize me." "So you found out from Big Sister Mu?" "That's right," Mu Lanyue said in a sweet voice. Ouyang Shuo nodded and introduced Fan Zhongyan and the others to Mu Lanyue and Mu Guing. At this moment, 3 women walked out of the teleportation array. The one walking in front was a woman who looked to be in her late 20s. She was dressed in a pale, white palace robe, which gave her an otherworldly aura. Her black, jade-like hair was tied into a simple, flying fairy bun. A few plump and round pearls adorned her hair casually, making her beautiful black, cloud-like hair appear even more soft and glossy. Her elegant, jade-like face was carved with beautiful facial features. Her watery eyes were crystal clear and bright, but they carried a faint coldness, as if they could see through everything. Her shoulders looked like they were carved. Her waist was as thin as silk. Her eyebrows were like emerald feathers, and her skin was as white as snow. Because they had met at the auction, Ouyang Shuo naturally recognized that she was Bai Hua. Behind Bai Hua was a woman in her mid-20s. She wore a light purple dress with light blue orchids embroidered on the cuffs. A few flower petals were embroidered with silver thread, and the hem of the dress was ice blue. Her chest was covered with a silver-white brocade. As she turned her body, the dress spread out. Her hair was casually tied into a tassel bun, and her eyes were filled with spring. Her skin was smooth and moist like warm jade, and her cherry-red lips were tender and beautiful. 2 strands of hair on the side of her cheeks were gently brushed by the wind, adding a bit of seductive charm to her appearance. Her nimble eyes were moving around intelligently. In his previous life, Ouyang Shuo had met Violet once, so he naturally recognized her at a glance. The last woman was about the same age as Mu Lanyue. She wore a green dress that reached the ground without a single pattern. There were only a few half-opened oleanders embroidered with red thread on the cuffs. A milky white silk ribbon was tied around her waist, and there was a small incense pouch and a green jade pendant. Her hair was combed cleanly and neatly. Her bangs were casually scattered, and the hair on her forehead seemed to be unintentionally parted. As her hair swayed, it brought out the natural beauty of a lotus after the rain. Ouyang Shuo smiled and welcomed her, saying, "Lord Bai Hua, welcome, welcome." Bai Hua nodded in response. She then turned around and introduced Violet and Cyan Yi to Ouyang Shua. Only then did Ouyang Shua know that the last woman was Cyan Yi. Naturally, the two sides exchanged greetings. Because they had already agreed on a time, it didn't take more than a few minutes for the dragon-seeking acupoint and the siege lion to walk out of the teleportation formation. Like Mulan Yue, the two of them had brought the only historical talent in their territory to help. The seeking dragon and sealing acupoint brought Qin Xiong, a famous general of the early Tang dynasty, while the siege lion brought Zhu Shu, a strategist of the Three Kingdoms. Qin Xiong's courtesy name was Shu Bao. He was an expert in using the lance, and he was famous for his bravery and valiance. At first, he was Sui Guiliang's protector general. Later, he followed Zhang Shutua to crusade against Li Mi. The army was defeated and Zhang Shutua died in battle. Qin Shubao became Peirenji's subordinate and followed Peirenji to surrender to Li Mi. After Li Mi failed, he surrendered to Wang Shichong. Because he saw that Wang Shichong was a treacherous person, he joined Cheng Yao Jin and the others in defecting to Tang and was assigned to the king of Qin, Li Shimin. He had participated in all of Li Shimin's battles and was always the first to take the head of the enemy's general. In his later years, Qin Xiong suffered from too many injuries in battle and was plagued with illness. In the 12th year of Jingguan, he died of illness. In the 17th year of Jingguan, he was ranked last among the 24 meritorious officials of the Lingyan Pavilion. Qin Xiong could be considered as someone from the same generation as Shi Wansui. Unfortunately, Shi Wansui had already passed away when Qin Xiong was young, so the two of them did not have any interaction. Zhu Shu, a strategist serving under Yuan Shao in the late Eastern Han Dynasty. He was once Yi Prefecture's imperial envoy and served as a county magistrate for 2 years. He had little ambition and was good at strategizing. Later on, he was Han Fu's imperial envoy and was appointed as the cavalry commandant. After Yuan Shao occupied Ji Prefecture, he appointed Zhu Shu as his imperial envoy. He often suggested good strategies to Yuan Shao, but Yuan Shao did not listen most of the time. During the Battle of Guandu, Yuan Shao suffered a great defeat. Before Zhu Shu could escape, he was captured by Cao Cao and executed for refusing to surrender. Ouyang Shua was envious when he saw Qin Xiong and Zhu Shu. These two were talents that Shanghai town urgently needed. Qin Xiong, who was good at using the lance, was the best candidate to be the heavy cavalry battalion's instructor. The main weapon of the Tang dynasty's radiant armor elite cavalry was the lance with the strongest armor-piercing ability. The lance's blade had obvious armor-piercing edges. A good lance had 8 sides like a treasured sword. Ordinary fish-scale chainmail armor, iron ring armor, and radiant armor could be broken by the lance. The lance was long and heavy. It was not an easy task to master it. Throughout history, those who were good at using the lance were the Tang dynasty's famous generals, such as Yu Qigong, Cheng Yao Jin, Qin Xiong, and Li Cunxiao. Zhu Shu was also a strategist that Shanghai town urgently needed. Compared to Gu Hongliang, Zhu Shu was several levels higher. As the Shanghai town's army grew stronger, the battles they faced became more complicated. The more specialized strategists like Zhu Shu, the better. After everyone arrived, it was not good to stay at the teleportation formation. Ouyang Shua led them to the Lord's Mansion. Lord's Mansion, Conference Hall. After everyone was seated, Ouyang Shua smiled and said, "First of all, I would like to welcome everyone to Shanghai town. Today is the first time the Shanghai Alliance has gathered together. This is a rare opportunity. In order to express our intention to form an alliance, we have specially prepared a simple alliance ceremony. I wonder if everyone is willing to come? Brother Wui is very thoughtful. We should indeed hold an alliance ceremony. In ancient times, when the feudal vassals met, they would hold a ceremony and pray to the gods to show their sincerity. Dragon-seeking acupoint was the first to agree. Bai Hua and the siege lion also nodded in agreement. When Mulan Yue heard that they were going to hold an alliance ceremony, she thought it was just for fun. Seeing that everyone agreed, Ouyang Shua stood up and gestured to Fan Zhongyan to lead everyone to the back of the mountain. The Tunyan beasts in the back of the mountain did not panic when they saw a group of people walking over. They were still leisurely basking in the sun on the hillside. On the other hand, Bai Hua and the others were shocked when they saw the Tunyan beasts. They had all participated in the New Year's Eve event, so they naturally recognized the two vicious beasts in front of them. Ah, aren't these man-eating yin beasts? Brother Wui, why are they here? Mulan asked innocently. She couldn't hide anything. Since they had chosen the back of the mountain, Ouyang Shua had no intention of hiding anything. He smiled and explained, "Everyone, don't worry. They won't hurt anyone. During the New Year's Eve event, I was lucky enough to subdue them with a contract scroll. Now, these Tunyan beasts are the guardian beasts of Shanghai Town. They're auspicious beasts, not vicious beasts." Only then did everyone feel relieved. However, the way they looked at Ouyang Shua became even more unfathomable. Just from the tip of the iceberg, they could see the foundation of Shanghai Town. The ancient ceremony of alliance mainly consisted of slaughtering animals, drawing blood, announcing to the gods, and using the animals to write a letter. Before forming an alliance, they would dig the ground to make a square ridge and slaughter the animals on the ridge. At the top of the mountain, the square ridge had already been built, and a wild bull was placed on it. When slaughtering the animal, the left ear of the animal would be cut first, and the blood would be taken. The animal's ear would be placed on a bead plate, and the blood would be placed on a jade tablet. Then, Tian Wenjing would dip the blood in the blood and write the letter of alliance. Then, Fan Zhongyan would hold the jade tablet and read the letter of alliance. After the participants had no objections, the official in charge of the oath would face the north and read the letter of alliance to the gods. Next, the blood would be drawn. Ouyang Shua would hold the animal's ear and smear the blood around his mouth. Then, Fan Zhongyan would draw blood according to the status of the participants. After all the participants had their blood drawn, the slaughtered animals were placed in a pit, and the letter of alliance was buried on top of the animals. Only then was the ceremony of alliance complete. During the blood drawing, the two women, Bai Hua and Mulan Yue, seemed to be reluctant to smear the animal's blood on their mouths. They only placed it near their chin, symbolically nodding it. Ouyang Shua and the other men could naturally understand, so they didn't force it. On the other hand, the bastard siege lion drank a mouthful of the blood, looking extremely domineering. Chapter 122. It was exactly 10 in the morning after the ceremony. The parade was ready, and 1,000 soldiers were lined up in front of the square, waiting to be inspected. Ouyang Shua invited Bai Hua and the others to follow him to the inspection stage. The inspection stage was divided into 2 rows. The 5 lords sat in the front row, and the people from Shanghai Town sat in the back row. On Ouyang Shua's left sat Bai Hua and Mulan Yue. On the right were the dragon-seeking acupoints and the siege lion. What you're about to see is the army that Shanghai Town is sending out. It is a gathering of all the elites of Shanghai Town. The resources of Shanghai Town will be displayed in front of you, Ouyang Shua said with a smile. Because the number of troops was limited, the 1,000 soldiers walked through the inspection stage in groups. Shi Wansui was the commander of the parade, and he rode at the front. Behind him were 3 infantry groups, and the one at the front was naturally the heavy infantry group, which was equipped with Tang Dao and infantry armor. Then there were 2 archer groups and 3 crossbowmen groups, all wearing leather armor. The last to appear were 2 cavalry groups, all of them riding green horses, carrying Tang Dao, horn bows, and holding long lances. The 50 cavalrymen at the front were also equipped with radiant armor. Seeing these troops, everyone had different reactions. Bai Hua noticed Shi Wansui, the historical emperor-level character. When she saw Fan Zhongyan and Tian Wenjing, the 2 historical kings, she thought that they were the historical characters that were summoned by the reward of the wearing no clothes building village mission. Who would have thought that there would be one hidden in the army? Her own village building mission had a higher completion rate, but she was only rewarded with a silver village creation token and a king summoning charm. This meant that the gold grade village creation token had definitely been obtained by him. Dragon seeking acupuncture point's attention was completely attracted by the heavy cavalry in radiant armor. With a general like Qin Xiong, his dream was to recreate the elite heavy cavalry of the Tang dynasty, just like Ouyang Shua. Unfortunately, whether it was war horses, weapons, or equipment, he couldn't achieve any of them. Who would have thought that Shanghai town had already prepared everything? Well, a bunch of animals. Qin Xiong, who was sitting behind dragon-seeking acupuncture point, was in a daze when he saw the cavalry group. Through them, Qin Xiong seemed to have returned to the days when he was fighting on the battlefield. What the siege lions liked the most was the heavy infantry at the front. There were also barbarians near his territory. Thus, he could tell at a glance that those soldiers were mountain barbarians. This kind of armor might be a little heavy for ordinary soldiers, but it was just right for the barbarians. They were practically a match made in heaven. As for Mulan Yue, she was just watching the show. On the other hand, Mu Ging, who was sitting behind her, saw the green beetle horses on the cavalry, and her eyes narrowed. She had already recognized that these war horses were the green beetle horses raised by the nomadic tribes in the center of the basin. Mu Guiying could not imagine how the Shanghai town had obtained these war horses. This military parade was a good demonstration of the strength of Shanghai town to their allies. It showed that Ouyang Shual was worthy of being the leader of the Shanghai town. At the same time, he displayed the most cutting-edge weapons and equipment in Shanghai town. The future head of munitions slowly revealed his fangs and waited for his allies to take the bait. After the parade ended, Dragon seeking acupuncture point and the others stared straight at Ouyang Shuo as if they wanted to eat him alive. Ouyang Shuo pretended not to know and asked with a smile, "How is it? Since we still have time, how about I show you around?" The siege lion was the most straightforward, and he was the first to speak. "Brother Wui, of course we have to look. But this is not the main point. The main point is, are you selling the equipment that was displayed just now?" Ouyang Shuo nodded, then shook his head. "What do you mean?" The siege lion did not understand. "Selling and not selling. Previously, when we formed the alliance, I already promised that I would prioritize selling weapons and equipment to all of you. However, there is a precondition, and that is that I will only consider selling them after the Shanghai town's own army is fully equipped. As you can see, there are only 1,000 soldiers, and they are not fully equipped yet. We don't have any extra equipment to sell to you now." Ouyang Shuo did not keep them in suspense. "Although we are not selling them now, Brother Wui should have a price in mind. Why don't you tell us so that we can prepare when we go back?" Bai Hua asked. The eyes of the others also lit up. It was obvious that they were also very concerned about this issue. "I knew you would ask." Ouyang Shuo looked at Yingyu, who was standing behind him. Yingyu understood and said with a smile, "As for the price of the weapons and equipment, as well as the subsequent orders, why don't you arrange for your entourage to discuss with us at the finance office? There is no need to trouble the lords to personally deal with such an unscrupulous matter." Those who could become a territory's lord were all shrewd people. Naturally, they could hear the hidden meaning in Yingyu's words. To put it bluntly, today's gathering was to bond. It was naturally not good for the lords to put down their pride and haggle at a time like this. It was more suitable for them to leave it to their subordinates. Thus, the crowd was divided into two groups. Yingyu brought Violet, Mu Ging, Qin Xiong, and Zhu Sheng to the finance office of the Lord's Mansion to discuss the purchase of weapons and equipment. Ouyang Shuo led the rest of the people to tour the Shanghai town, accompanied by Fan Zhongyan and Tian Wenjing. Everyone had already been to the back mountain, and the Lord's Mansion was more or less the same. There was nothing much to see. Ouyang Shuo first brought everyone to the cultural district on the east side of the Lord's Mansion. He showed everyone the two hidden buildings, Mazu Temple and the Recruitment Hall, as well as Lianzhou Academy. The mysteriousness of the Mazu Temple, the powerful functions of the Recruitment Center, and the scale of Lianzhou Academy all brought great shock to Bai Hua and his group. They were pleasantly surprised. How many secrets were hidden in this small Shanghai town? What everyone was most interested in was the operation mode of Lianzhou Academy. After all, Mazu Temple and the Recruitment Hall were hidden buildings, so there was nothing to be envious about. Only Lianzhou Academy could be used as a reference. Ouyang Shuo didn't hide anything and generously imparted his experience to everyone. First, the academy was the basic building of a third-class county, so it couldn't be kept a secret for long. Telling everyone in advance could increase the strength of their allies. Second, other territories didn't have such strong territorial characteristics as Shanghai Town, so they couldn't recruit so many Jiren or Jinshe. No matter how good they were, they couldn't catch up to Lianzhou Academy. Ouyang Shuo didn't say anything, and everyone consciously avoided the southeastern military zone. No one tactlessly said that they wanted to visit it. Therefore, Ouyang Shuo brought everyone to the Northwest Commercial District. Here, all the major workshops were in full swing, and it was a scene of prosperity. Finally, Ouyang Shuo took everyone to the North Gate Tower to enjoy the scenery of Shanghai Town. The city wall itself was enough to shock everyone, but when they saw the moat surrounding the city wall, they all looked at Ouyang Shuo speechlessly. Just how insecure was this guy? He had built such a powerful fortification so early in the game. Mulan Yue saw the flag of Shanghai Town on the gate tower and said, "Wow, this flag is so beautiful. Well, when I go back, I want to design a flag too. It's so cool." That's right, that's right. The siege lion echoed, looking a little impatient. Looking at the giant golden dragon on the flag, Bai Hua joked, "Big brother Wui, you're quite ambitious. You're aiming for the position of supreme martial artist." Ouyang Shuo smiled and didn't say anything. Near noon, Ouyang Shuo hosted a banquet to entertain Bai Hua and the others. The banquet wasn't held in the Lord's mansion, but in Sangha Restaurant. Sangha Restaurant was built in the busiest commercial district and had a total of 2 floors. The banquet was held in a private room on the 2nd floor. In the past, other than Ouyang Shuo, very few people were willing to eat here. Following the increase in salary, people often came to the lobby on the 1st floor to eat, to invite friends and family, or to discuss business. San Yang was already waiting at the entrance of the restaurant. When she saw Ouyang Shuo's group, she quickly came up and said with a smile, "Sir, the banquet is ready. We can start at any time." Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, "Thank you, San Yang. Has Yu and the others arrived?" "Eldest Miss has already arrived. She's on the 2nd floor with the guests," Gu Sanyang replied. "All right, then let's go up as well," Ouyang Shuo said to Bai Hua and the others. After going upstairs, Yu vaguely nodded to Ouyang Shuo, indicating that the discussion was settled. Ouyang Shuo smiled and invited everyone to take their seats. For the sake of this banquet, Gu Sanyang had used all her skills. There was seafood from North Sea Town, mutton and pork from the ranch, vegetables from the garden, chickens, ducks, geese, and other poultry from the farmer's market, and wild game from the mountain barbarian tribes. It was already very sumptuous. Of course, the banquet could not be without tea. Whether it was Baihao tea or Sanhua wine, they were all rare fine products. The rich ingredients, coupled with Gu Sanyang's exquisite cooking skills, could already compare to a real feast. Bai Hua and the others were already numb. They never imagined that the resources produced by Shanghai Town would be so rich. In their own territory, it was already very rare to be able to eat meat. "Boo-hoo, after eating this, I won't be able to eat any more when I go back," Mulan Yue said in a sweet voice. Bai Hua and the others nodded in unison, their hearts filled with sorrow. Ouyang Shuo chuckled and raised the wine cup at his hand. He said with a smile, "Come, let's toast to the first gathering of our Shanghai Alliance. Cheers!" After the meal, the atmosphere was lively and intoxicated, and it was extremely lively. Unknowingly, the unfamiliarity between everyone gradually disappeared, and they became intimate. Why else would people say that a banquet was the best place to make friends? This was not without reason. Chapter 123. 2 in the afternoon, Shanghai Town's meeting hall. Everyone, now, we will discuss the Zhuolu battle. First, I want to know the number of troops each of you can lead, Ouyang Shuo said. Everyone reported their titles. Magnolia and Siege Lion were third-rank viscounts and could lead 100 people. Dragon-seeking acupoint was a second-rank viscount and could lead 200 people. Baiwa was the highest, a first-rank viscount, and could lead 300 people. The four of them added up to a total of 700 people. It wasn't even as many as Ouyang Shua could lead alone. After counting the number of troops, Ouyang Shua continued, "This battle is known as the Zhuolu Battle. According to historical records, it should be divided into the Yellow Emperor and Chiyu camps. What do you think about the choice of camp? I'll say this in advance. I will definitely choose the Yellow Emperor camp." Siege Lion was speechless. "Big brother, you've already chosen your camp. Why are you asking us?" Ouyang Shua was also a little embarrassed. He deliberately coughed and said, "Ahem, the alliance doesn't force the choice of camp. It's just informing us in advance. It doesn't matter even if we choose the opposing camp. Who knows, we might even have to choose the opposing camp when there's a conflict between the needs of the alliance members." Dragon-seeking acupoint nodded in understanding and said with a smile, "Brother Wui is right. In any battle, if you want to subdue a general from one camp and he wants to subdue a general from another camp, wouldn't they have to choose the opposing camp? That's very normal. Besides, choosing the opposing camp isn't necessarily a bad thing. Who knows, we might even be able to communicate with each other." As expected of a mission maniac, Dragon-seeking acupoint's understanding of the game was much more thorough. Magnolia was the first to express her opinion. "Since Brother Wui has chosen the Yellow Emperor camp, I'll also choose the Yellow Emperor camp. I only have 100 people, so I'm counting on Brother Wui to protect me." "No problem." Ouyang Shua had a very good impression of Magnolia. Moreover, Mugying alone was equivalent to an army of several hundred soldiers. "I also choose the Yellow Emperor camp," Baiwa said. "Same," Siege Lion said mischievously. Only Dragon-searching acupoint laughed and said, "On the contrary, I feel that Chiyo's camp is more interesting. As the defeated side in history, we might be able to dig out some hidden rewards." "All right, then it's settled," Ouyang Shua said. As someone who had been reborn, Ouyang Shua decided to divulge a few tips about warfare to his allies. Of course, in order not to arouse their suspicions, Ouyang Shua spoke tactfully. "I have a few conjectures about this campaign. Let's discuss it together." "Please speak," Bai Hua and the other three said in unison. Ouyang Shua nodded and said, "First, it's about the logistics. Have you ever thought that the Yellow Emperor and Chiyu lived in an era of slash-and-burn agriculture? If there were no surprises, there would only be around 100 lords participating in this campaign. Based on the fact that an overlord could lead an average of 200 soldiers, that would be an army of 20,000. If they were allocated to a camp, there would be about 10,000 people. Do you think that with the conditions of the Yellow Emperor's Yuxiong tribe or Chiyo's Jili tribe, they would be able to provide the rations for such a large army?" Dragon-searching acupoint shook his head and said, "Of course not. It's already good enough that they can feed themselves. How could they provide us with so much food?" "Brother Wui, are you saying that we need to bring our own rations for this campaign? But transporting so much rations is a big problem. There are only so many people to go in a battle, so we can't just give some to the transport team. Then what's the point of fighting? We might as well just be bystanders." Baihua's heart stirred. She remembered that during the parade in the morning, Shanghai town had prepared a full 1,000 regular soldiers. They didn't have any logistics troops. She understood and said with a smile, "I presume Wui already has a solution?" Ouyang Shua looked at Baihua with admiration and said, "Not bad. When I was strolling around the market, I saw a special item called the military ration pill. Out of curiosity, I bought one, and it turned out to be a wax pellet. A small military ration pill can replenish a soldier's energy for a day." "What's the price?" Dragon-searching acupoint asked anxiously. Such a miraculous military ration pill naturally isn't cheap. One military ration pill is sold for 1 silver coin. A normal soldier consumes 2 units of rations a day, which is 20 copper coins. The cost of the military ration pill is 5 times that of the latter. That's still very cost-effective. It's better than having a large logistics team following behind. Hee hee, but Brother Wui, you're in trouble. With such a large group of people, you'll need a lot of military ration pills. Dragon searching acupoint said gloatingly. Ouyang Shua smiled but didn't say anything. How could Dragon searching acupoint know that with Shanghai Town's financial resources, a small military ration pill wasn't a burden at all? An army of 1,000 plus warhorses only cost around 15 gold coins. Even if the campaign lasted for a month, it would only cost around 400 to 500 gold coins. Compared to the rewards from the campaign, this investment was nothing. Other than military ration pills, there's also a type of military tent. This kind of tent can be disassembled and folded. A military tent can accommodate 5 soldiers. Of course, good goods aren't cheap. One of these military tents costs 1 gold coin. Ouyang Shua continued. Great, with these 2 magical weapons, we won't have to worry about logistics, the siege lion said excitedly. Baihua's face was also filled with joy. Her beautiful eyes stared at Ouyang Shua, trying to see through the man in front of her. She really couldn't understand how Hu Says Wui understood the game so well. Was it just because he was meticulous? Or did he really have such a strong talent for the game that he could discover things that others couldn't? Take the military ration pills and the military tents, for example. The system brazenly placed them on the market, but no one tried to discover their value. Ouyang Shua nodded and said, actually, there are many magical items on the market. When everyone has nothing to do, you could take a look around. Who knows? There might be a surprise waiting for you. There's no need for me to remind everyone about little things like signal flares, right? That's all I can think of. As for the specific tactical arrangements, I would like to hear your opinion. Ouyang Shua looked at Zhu Shou, who was behind the siege lion, and said with a smile. In terms of strategizing, Zhu Shou was naturally the best among all of them. Yesterday, Ouyang Shua had wanted Gu Hongliang to lead the tactical arrangements. However, when he saw that the siege lion had brought along a famous strategist from the 3 kingdoms, he immediately canceled the arrangement. He didn't want Gu Hongliang to display his slight skill in front of Zhu Shou. Bai Hua, dragon-seeking acupuncture point, and Mu Lanyue weren't fools either. They all approved of Ouyang Shua's decision and looked at Zhu Shou. Zhu Shou didn't panic at all despite being stared at by so many people. He calmly stood up and bowed to everyone. Thank you, Shanghai Town's overlord, for thinking highly of me. Then, I shall embarrass myself. Sir, please speak. Ouyang Shua said sincerely. According to historical records, the Battle of Zhuolu should be a battle of attrition. There's a saying that there will be 9 battles in 3 years. In a prolonged stalemate, small skirmishes can happen at any time. Therefore, if you want to achieve something in this battle, you can't rule out small skirmishes other than the final battle. Therefore, I suggest that when choosing the troops to participate in the battle, you should try your best to choose the troops with high mobility and strong individual combat ability. In addition to the 2 weapons mentioned by Shanghai Town's overlord, the army rations pill and the army tents will give you the upper hand in this battle, Zhu Shou said. Clap, clap, clap. Ouyang Shua took the lead to applaud. He smiled and said, Sir is indeed extraordinary. It was already 4 in the afternoon when they finished discussing the battle. Thus, the first gathering of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas officially came to an end. Before leaving, Ouyang Shua prepared a small gift for everyone. He gave Qin Xiong a jar of 3-flower wine. He gave Zhu Shou a top-grade Baihao tea leaf specially for the Lord's residence. He gave the siege lion and dragon-seeking acupuncture point a high-quality Tang saber each. As for the 3 Baihua sisters and Mulan Yue, they gave them high-quality colorful silk, which was very suitable for women to sew clothes. Finally, there was Mu Gui. After some consideration, Ouyang Shua decided to give her a dark gold horn bow. It was the only one that the bow and crossbow division had produced with great difficulty. The reason why Ouyang Shua did this was mainly because Mulan Town and Shanghai Town both belonged to the Lian Province Basin. There would be many opportunities for cooperation in the future. It was very necessary to win over the core members of Mulan Town in advance. Perhaps one day, Mulan Town and Shanghai Town would become one family. There was no loss. After sending off his allies, Ouyang Shua began to prepare for the battle. The goal for the first half of May from the Wolf Mountain oars had been paid in advance. It was a total of 4,000 gold coins. Among them, the North Sea Fleet had to pay 500 gold coins to establish a second Navy battalion. Ouyang Shua walked into the high-class market and began to make purchases. His current storage bag had been expanded twice. Its capacity was now 100 cubic meters. It was more than enough for him to use alone. However, considering that he had to carry a lot of military supplies, 100 cubic meters was not enough. Ouyang Shua gritted his teeth and directly spent 1,000 gold coins to buy a large spatial stone. He expanded the storage bag to 1,000 cubic meters, which was equivalent to a cube with a side length of 10 meters. It was already big enough. As for the highest grade of large spatial stones, they were not available in the market. Even if there were, with Ouyang Shua's current wealth, he would not be able to afford it. It would definitely not be less than 50,000 gold coins. Spatial equipment in itself was a challenge to the ancient order. It was a bug-level item, comparable to a divine artifact. Of course, it was not that easy to increase its capacity. Chapter 124. After expanding the storage pouch, Ouyang Shua began to purchase military supplies. He first spent 210 gold coins to purchase 210 ordinary military tents. The reason why he bought 10 extra tents was to prepare for the officers. He couldn't possibly let Shi Wan Sui and the others squeeze into the same tent as the ordinary soldiers. It would be too unsuitable. He then spent 50 gold coins to purchase an exquisite military tent and placed it in his storage pouch to be used as a temporary headquarters in the future. Next was the military ration pills. Ouyang Shua spent 500 gold coins to purchase 50,000 of them, enough to support an army of 1,000 for a month. Since the military ration pills were placed in the storage pouch, there was no problem of expiration. If he couldn't finish them this time, he could use them again next time. The diameter of the military ration pills was about 2 centimeters. 50,000 military ration pills would only take up a small corner in Ouyang Shua's storage pouch. After leaving the barracks, Ouyang Shua went to the woodworking workshop. The current woodworking workshop had changed greatly from when Ouyang Shua first came. The area it occupied was 4 to 5 times the original. The woodworking workshop was divided into 2 courtyards. The front courtyard was used for reception and accommodation. The backyard was a spacious processing workshop. Over 100 carpenters were busy making wooden oxen and horses. Because it was already late, Ouyang Shua didn't have the mood to look around. He directly took the compass cart from the woodworking workshop's shopkeeper, Lu Guangji, and stored it in his storage pouch. He then left the woodworking workshop and returned to the Lord's mansion. After returning to the Lord's mansion, Ouyang Shua went straight to the backyard and went offline. In reality, it was already midsummer. Ever since he went on a trip during the Labor Day holiday, Binger had become more and more clingy. Today was Sunday. Ouyang Shua had just gotten up and washed up when Binger ran out of her bedroom. She was ready to go downstairs with Ouyang Shua for a jog. Even her favorite career of sleeping in was going to be abandoned. "Darling, why are you so active recently? Did the sun rise from the west?" Ouyang Shua teased. The little girl giggled and didn't say anything. She was like a proud little peacock. Binger was wearing a pink floral short-sleeved t-shirt, matching it with a pair of pink cotton sweatpants and a pair of white canvas running shoes. She looked like a beautiful, sporty girl. Ever since she became familiar with Xiaoyu had been the one who helped her pick out her clothes. Compared to Ouyang Shua's taste, it was naturally several levels higher. A girl's talent in this area was far beyond that of a man's. Running on the green road of the residential area, the little girl attracted a lot of attention. She was simply a little star, and the residents of the residential area loved her very much. Even Ouyang Shua was basking in the limelight, enjoying the attention that he rarely got. When he returned home, Xiaoya had not woken up yet. It seemed that she was catching up on sleep in her room. Although players were in a state of light sleep in the game, it wasn't comparable to true sleep. Therefore, some players, especially female players, would choose to sleep for an hour or two after logging off if they had the conditions. Lack of sleep was a woman's natural enemy. After breakfast, Ouyang Shuo turned on his optical computer and logged into the game forums. Over the past 2 days, the forum had been very lively. The focus of discussion was naturally the Zhuolu battle. Such a brand new quest system without any basic information was enough to whet the appetite of the players. Unfortunately, most of the players could only join in the fun on the forum. They didn't have the chance to participate in the quest. On the other hand, there were adventure-type players who wanted to participate in the war by joining the players' territories. Unfortunately, the territories that were qualified to participate in the war were all the best in China. There was no lack of talents. Moreover, due to the restrictions of nobility, most lords could only bring 100 to 200 people to participate in the war. There were no extra spots for adventure-type players. Ouyang Shuo was also worried that after knowing his identity, his aunt, Lin Jing, would contact him to fight for a spot for the Snow Rose Mercenary Corps. If that happened, there was a risk of being exposed early. As it turned out, Ouyang Shuo's worries were completely unnecessary. Although Lin Jing's sexual orientation was different from ordinary people, she still had a sense of propriety when dealing with people. Towards this nephew of his, Ouyang Shuo, it could be said that he loved him very much. Until now, he had not revealed any information about him to CSCN. On the forum, other than the Zhuolu battle, there was also other excitement. The land acquisition frenzy caused by Songwen lasted for nearly 2 months, and it still didn't stop. It continued to ferment. The Union government's statement was obviously unable to quell the citizens' doubts. Ever since the previous acquisition, the smart commoner lords had already sensed that something was amiss and began to reject the acquisition requests of consortiums or companies. Some wanted to wait for the highest price, while others wanted to wait for the fog to clear before making a decision. The number of territories was limited. In the entire China region, the number of player territories that could survive to this day did not exceed 10,000. As one of the 2 most developed regions in the Federation, in reality, there were more than 10,000 companies that could be ranked in the China region. There were more than 10,000 tycoons with personal assets of more than 100 million. In such a situation, there were too many wolves and not enough meat. The tension between supply and demand naturally led to violent fluctuations in the price. The medium-sized factions that had yet to succeed, as well as the smaller factions, had no choice but to raise the purchase price again and again. Previously, Songwen had used 100 million credits to purchase a level 3 village. Song Jia had thought that it was too extravagant. Now, a level 3 village was offered 200 million credits, but no one was willing to sell it. It was really crazy. As the price of territory continued to rise, the people's doubts about the game only grew. Moreover, this wave was no longer limited to the China region. It seemed to be sweeping across the entire world. Ouyang Shuo wanted to see how long the Federation could resist for. To Ouyang Shuo, he naturally hoped that the Federation would announce the truth in advance. If ordinary players knew the truth of the game, no one would be silly enough to exchange their hard-earned game coins for credits. That way, they could cut off Di Chun and the rest financial chain. Although there was such a huge temptation, Ouyang Shuo was not prepared to stand out and do something out of the ordinary, such as announcing the truth of the game on the forum. Doing so was simply courting death. Skynet surveillance was everywhere. Ouyang Shuo did not have the skills of a hacker to release the news without being noticed by Skynet. No matter who it was, anyone who dared to leak the Federation's core secrets would be brutally suppressed. The Federation government could not suppress the public opinion, but they had ways to deal with a small individual like you. In modern society, the democratic system was extremely perfect. For example, Ouyang Shuo's suggestion to Song One was a normal deduction made by the players based on the basic rules of the game and the rules of business in reality. Even if Skynet was aware of such behavior, it would not do anything to Ouyang Shuo. It would fully protect his civil rights. However, if he intentionally leaked secrets, it would cause social unrest. Then, the Federation government would have enough reason to arrest him immediately for the crime of leaking state secrets. So, Before he found a suitable opportunity, Ouyang Shuo wouldn't act rashly. It was already 10 o'clock in the morning when Ouyang Shuo logged out of the forum. At this time, Xiaoya finally got up. Just like Ouyang Shuo, Xiaoya did not escape Binger's teasing. With her chubby little hand, the little girl cutely scratched her equally chubby face and said to Sun Xiaoya with a smile, "Shameful. I'm a big lazy bug. Bing has already finished her homework, and I've just woken up." Sun Xiaoya was not Ouyang Shuo. She was embarrassed and anger by Binger's words. She quickly walked over and hugged Binger in her arms. She pinched the little girl's face hard and said coquettishly, "Stupid girl, you even dare to mock me. See if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't be able to go to heaven." Ah! Binger immediately begged for mercy and said pitifully, "Woo-woo, sister, Binger knows she's wrong. I won't dare to call you a big lazy bum anymore." "You still say that." Sun Xiaoya was so angry that she used her hand to pinch Binger's armpit, making the little girl giggle. "Ah, ha, sister. Binger is really wrong. Ha, sister, let me go." The little girl finally gave in. Armpits were Binger's weakness. A light pinch would make her itch. At least you know what's good for you." Xiaoya finally let go of Binger and walked to the bathroom in a domineering manner. Ouyang Shuo sat on the sofa and watched the show happily. Binger turned her head and saw her bad brother, who was taking pleasure in her misfortune. She immediately threw herself into his arms and said unwillingly, "Brother, you're bad. You don't even know how to save your cute sister." Ouyang Shuo laughed and knocked the little girl's head and said, "Ha! Do you think Sister Xiaoya is the same as brother, who could be ridiculed by you? You have to take responsibility for your own mistakes." Binger embarrassedly buried her face in Ouyang Shuo's arms and twisted around, not saying a word. Ouyang Shuo gently touched Binger's head and decided to give her a way out. He said dotingly, "Baby, tell me, what do you want to eat for lunch? Brother will make it for you." "I want to eat sweet and sour spare ribs." Sure enough, the little foodie immediately became spirited. She raised her head and said excitedly. Ouyang Shuo poked her forehead and said, "Little pixie, it's a little troublesome. Fine, brother will make sweet and sour spare ribs for you for lunch. I guarantee our little princess will be satisfied." Binger happily squinted her eyes and kissed Ouyang Shuo's face. She intimately said, "And brother is still the best to Binger." Obviously, she was very happy with Ouyang Shuo's love. "I want to eat potato braised beef brisket." Sun Xiaoya suddenly poked her head out from the bathroom and said loudly. Ouyang Shuo patted his head. Damn, another foodie. He could only accept his fate and said, "Yes, sister." Chapter 125. After lunch, Ouyang Shuo received a call from Songjia. "Blockhead, can you participate in the Zhuolu battle?" "Of course," Ouyang Shuo said smugly. In front of Songjia, Ouyang Shuo was the most relaxed. He said whatever was on his mind without the slightest worry. He was especially free. He was like a child who would never hide his achievements from Songjia. When it was time to show off, he would never choose to keep a low profile. "You're so full of yourself. Look at what you're capable of," Songjia said helplessly. She was truly helpless against Ouyang Shuo's childish behavior from time to time. She didn't know why, but when she saw Ouyang Shuo playing around with her, it was as if she had returned to the time when she was in junior high school. The little boy who always sat quietly in the corner and read books seemed to have traveled through time and space and once again appeared before her eyes, causing her to feel even more intimate. "Has your big brother's Heavenly Frost Village been promoted to a first-class town?" Songjia shook her head and said gloomily, "Not yet. When we took over, the Heavenly Frost Village had just been promoted to a level 3 village. Moreover, the Heavenly Frost Village's village creation token was the lowest grade bronze village creation token, so the village's characteristics were extremely poor. In the past 2 days, no matter how hard my big brother tried, he still couldn't meet the requirements for promotion. I can only regretfully miss this campaign mission." Ouyang Shuo nodded. He was glad that they didn't have to meet on a battle map. Otherwise, he really did not know how to face Songjia. Should they acknowledge each other or not? If he did, his identity would be exposed. If it was only Song Jia who knew of his identity, Ouyang Shuo would not be worried. However, with the Song Consortium's influence in the Lingnan region, as long as Ouyang Shuo gave himself away, they would be able to find out his double identity in a matter of minutes. If he didn't acknowledge her, it would be unfair to Song Jia. If they didn't have a map and didn't have the conditions to meet, it would still make sense. However, if they were in the same mission map and could meet at any time, it would be a little too much to hide their identities. Fortunately, Ouyang Shuo didn't have to make such a difficult choice. Don't worry, there will be more opportunities in the future. Ouyang Shuo comforted Song Jia. Song Jia nodded. She had no other regrets. Her interest was still in adventure games, and she wasn't too keen on territory construction. Just now, he was just expressing his emotions when he saw his big brother Song Wen's dejection. Good luck. Try your best to get a good ranking, Song Jia said with a smile. Of course. Ouyang Shuo continued to show off. Song Jia propped her forehead with her hand, indicating that she couldn't stand Ouyang Shuo's thick face anymore. She spat at Ouyang Shuo through the video call and tenderly said, I really can't stand you. Your face is getting thicker and thicker. You can even build a wall with it. Ouyang Shuo pretended to be hurt and said, Sigh, it turns out that you don't believe in my strength. It's really sad. Life is as lonely as snow. All right, I know you're amazing. My mom is calling me. See you next time. Bye. Song Jia said. Bye-bye. Kunming, flourishing garden. Shengshi Garden with a high-end villa complex in Kunming. Those who lived here were either rich or respectable. The environment here was beautiful and the scenery was beautiful. It was the only scenery in Kunming. The entire district was like a garden. The sparsely scattered villas were situated amidst the red flowers and green leaves. It was extremely pleasant. 4 single women lived in a villa in the southwest corner of the Shengshi Garden. Each of them had outstanding looks and extraordinary temperament. Even in such a high-class residential area, he could still be said to be a crane in a flock of chickens and outstanding. Unfortunately, in the eyes of the district security guards, these women were a little too indoors. They were rarely seen going out, but there were 3 or 4 express deliveries to their door every day. Unbeknownst to them, this villa was the stronghold of the Spirit Rhino studio. The 4 eye-catching young women were naturally Qing, Hong, Purple, and Bai. Because of their success in the game, as the top professional players in the China region, their personal wealth had long broken through the 10 million mark. Like Bai Hua, they already had a net worth of hundreds of millions. Naturally, they had the conditions to live in such a high-end district. Just like Sun Xiaoye, after the 4 female stars went offline, they went back to sleep. It was already 11 o'clock in the morning when they woke up. The housekeeping robot had already prepared brunch, waiting for the 4 masters to enjoy. Thanks to the high development of modern technology, intelligent robots were quickly popularized. The housekeeping robot was one of the best. Not only could it clean the room, but it could also do the laundry and cook. The cooking skills of a high-level housekeeping robot was no less than that of a star-rated chef. Ever since the advent of housekeeping robots, the babysitter industry had completely disappeared. What was left was only the advanced custom-made private housekeeper service, which was no longer something that ordinary people could enjoy. Only those aristocratic families would hire professional housekeepers. The Baihua sisters were rich, so the housekeeping robot was naturally high-end. In addition, the sisters weren't picky about food, so they stayed at home every day and rarely went out. As for shopping, don't be ridiculous. Other than looking for novelty, who would go shopping? Especially the 4 female stars who were addicted to games. 180 years ago, when VR technology appeared, there were already people who envisioned virtual shopping through VR glasses. Now, VR technology had long been thrown into the trash. Shopping platforms directly developed virtual shopping malls. Customers could log into the mall and shop as much as they wanted, just like playing a game. Whichever item they liked. After placing an order, a drone would deliver it to them within 2 hours in the real world. It was indescribably convenient. The reason why Ouyang Shua often took Binger shopping or playing was because he didn't want her to leave the real world at such a young age and live in the virtual world. After eating, the sisters sat in the living room and chatted. Because they were at home and it was summer, the girls were dressed more casually. Bai Hua wore a loose white t-shirt and a pair of gray cotton shorts, showing off her perfect figure. If any male friend were present and saw this scene, they would probably have a nosebleed. She casually leaned against the soft sofa and looked at Qingyi, who was sitting next to her. She asked, "Little one, how do you feel about going to Shanghai town yesterday?" During the trip to Shanghai town, although Qingyi didn't say much from beginning to end, she was actually the one who observed the most. Bai Hua's question didn't mean that she was being tricked. In reality, Qingyi was a very cute girl. Today, she was wearing a chibi cartoon t-shirt and a pair of pink shorts. Coupled with her cute baby face, she was simply a cute thing. Qingyi looked at Bai Hua's rising and falling chest with great envy, and then looked at her own flat chest. She said, "Big sister, what did you eat to grow up?" Bai Hua put her hand to her forehead and looked like she knew it would be like this. Although Qingyi was called Little Zhuge in the game, she was very mischievous in real life and often teased her sisters. Before Bai Hua could say anything, Violet suddenly jumped to Bai Hua's side and hugged her tightly. Then she stretched out her claws and quickly grabbed Bai Hua's chest. She said evilly, "Hee hee, little one, don't be envious. This is natural and can't be envied. You're still young. Maybe you'll have a second puberty." "Oof, sister, you're lying to me again. Last time you told me that papaya could help with breast enlargement, but it didn't work at all." Big liar. Qingyi obviously didn't believe Violet's second puberty. To be honest, Violet's figure wasn't inferior to Bai Hua's at all. She was even more charming and sexy. This girl was wearing a small black camisole and didn't even wear a bra. Her two little nipples were clearly visible. She wore a pair of sexy panties that could barely cover her perky breasts, revealing her slender, white, and tender thighs. Among the sisters, only Red Eagle wasn't fated to be sexy. This girl had short hair and wore a military green t-shirt and a pair of denim shorts. She was dressed like a military enthusiast. Coupled with her flat chest like Qingyi's, she looked like a tomboy at first glance. Bai Hua pushed Violet's claws away with a helpless expression. He was clearly at his wit's end with this female pervert. He turned to look at Qingyi and said with a smile, "Little one, you don't have a boyfriend right now. Why are you always concerned about the size of your chest? Besides, a cute girl like you is very popular." "That's right. What's so good about having a big chest? It'll only be a burden," Red Eagle echoed. Violet looked at Red Eagle speechlessly and said, "Third sister, you're already walking further and further down the path of a tomboy. You're completely hopeless. Little one can pretend to be cute, but you can only be a bodyguard. A tomboy is a tomboy. I think it's pretty good," Red Eagle replied domineeringly. Bai Hua ignored Violet and Red Eagle's bickering and continued to say to Qingyi, "Or is it that this little girl is in love and has fallen in love with some guy?" "Sister." Qingyi immediately ran over to argue with Bai Hua. She said angrily, "Even if it's his first awakening of love, he's staying at home every day. He doesn't have a chance. Spring just passed. Why is little one in love?" She even said that she doesn't have a chance. Violet didn't mind blowing things up and said teasingly, Qingyi realized that she had said the wrong thing in a moment of desperation. Her face instantly turned red. "Ha!" The sisters laughed together. This kind of scene had become a daily routine for the sisters. Every day, Qingyi would envy Bai Hua, and every time, Violet would take advantage of him. P.S. When it goes on sale tomorrow, 100 subscriptions plus 1 chapter. Great rewards can be added as appropriate. There's no cap. Thank you everyone for your support. Chapter 126. After playing around for a while, the sisters finally remembered business. Qingyi held a gangster rabbit doll in her arms and leaned against the sofa, saying, "Yesterday's trip to Shanghai town brought me a lot of shock. The foundation of Shanghai town is completely beyond my imagination. Compared to the speculations of the outside world, It's several orders of magnitude lower. What do you mean? Bai Hua asked curiously. Qingyi rarely boasted. If she said she was shocked, then she was really shocked. Because she had to split her attention to observe the other allies, her observation of Shanghai town was definitely not as thorough as Qingyi's. In a nutshell, it's the construction of a system. I discovered that Shanghai town has already established an extremely perfect system. Whether it's the administrative system, the military system, or the economic system, they're all extremely complete. There's even a supporting talent training system and industrial system. In the entire Shanghai town, there's only one player, not clothes. I can't imagine how he managed to build Shanghai town to such an extent in such a short period of time. Qingyi said in disbelief. What? I don't understand what you're saying, Red Eagle interrupted. Is that not clothes really that amazing? Bai Hua nodded. Little one is right. Shanghai town does have many things that we can learn from. Not only that, not clothes gives me the feeling that he's extremely familiar with this game. In addition, I have a feeling that his purpose in playing this game is different from ours. As professional players, we're still used to operating Linksy Town as a game asset. However, not clothes is different. He seems to really position himself as a real lord, and Shanghai Town is his territory. Did you guys notice that although there are no players in Shanghai Town, his attitude towards NPCs is exactly the same as his attitude towards his players? He doesn't deliberately distinguish between players and NPCs. Perhaps this was a reason why he was able to develop Shanghai Town to such an extent. This kind of sense of ownership is precisely what we lack the most. Violet and Qingyi, the two visitors to Shanghai Town, nodded in agreement. One more thing, Qingyi added, although not closed, generously opened Shanghai Town to us allies to visit this time. I feel that there are still some reservations. At least, I still don't know what Shanghai Town's source of income is. Mountain Sea Town is indeed very developed, and their tax revenue is also far higher than our Spirit Rhino Town. However, at the same time, in order to maintain the operation of this system, the investment would also be very shocking. Big sister, I don't know if you've noticed, but the residents of Shanghai Town have a much higher standard of living than our Spirit Rhino Town. Every one of them was wearing new clothes. Their faces were ruddy and full of energy, which meant that they were living a prosperous life. At noon, when we were having lunch at the Sangha restaurant, there were many residents in the lobby of the first floor. For us, who have just solved the problem of food and clothing, this is simply unimaginable. Bai Hua nodded and said with a sigh, yes, this is also what puzzles me. However, this was normal. The Mountain Sea Town must have some special source of funds. It's understandable that he kept it a secret from us. My guess is that this method cannot be replicated. Otherwise, with the sincerity and magnanimity displayed by Hiyu Wui, he wouldn't have kept silent about us. That's right. Qingyi nodded in agreement and said, it really is better to see than to know by reputation. Eldest sister's choice of who says Wui as the alliance leader was the right move. In just a day, you can already feel that he already possesses the bearing and breadth of mind of an ambitious and ruthless person. For someone the same age as us, this is really too rare. Oh, little girl, don't tell me you've fallen in love with him? Has spring really come? Violet teased, not at all self-conscious as an older sister. This time, Qingyi didn't cower and pretended to be infatuated. So what if I am? Don't you think that Hiyu Wui is very manly? Compared to those pretty boys, I don't know how many times better they are. Violet looked at Qingyi in surprise and said with a smile, little girl, you're not that old, but your eyes are quite sharp. You're right. Hiyu Wui is indeed very special. Qingyi's face was full of ridicule as she said playfully, big sister, you say that I'm infatuated, but from what I see, the one who is truly infatuated is you, big sister. As the representative of the bold and unrestrained faction, Qingyi's attack was nothing to Violet. She walked over to Bai Hua's side in a flirtatious manner and hugged her. She then said in a voice that was as sweet as death, this old woman doesn't like him. As for me, I just need Bai Hua to warm my bed. Isn't that right, wifey? As she spoke, she moved to kiss Bai Hua's cheek. Qingyi, who was standing to the side, covered her eyes with her hands and exclaimed, "Ah, I'm still a young girl. How can big sister do something so inappropriate in front of me?" Actually, her fingers were spread apart, and she looked like she was watching a good show. Bai Hua helplessly pushed Violet away, not letting her have her way. She said coquettishly, "You two, we were just talking about serious matters, and now you're talking about it again? You're really making me worry." Violet didn't mind and said with a smile, "Didn't we just finish talking? What else is there to talk about? As for the secret of Shanghai town, there's no need to trouble yourself." Bai Hua shook her head. "That's not the point." "Then what's the point?" Violet asked. "The point is, from the various signs in Shanghai town, it's clear that he Yui knows this game better than we do. He's also much more invested in this game than we are. Have you ever wondered why this is the case? What's his purpose in playing this game?" Bai Hua asked one after another. "Why are there so many whys?" "Maybe he's one of those rare game experiencers," Red Eagle, who had been quiet all this time, suddenly said. The so-called game experiencers referred to players who completely immerse themselves in the game, treating themselves as if they were natives and experiencing a life that was different from reality. Ever since the realism of virtual games exceeded 80%, the number of players in this category had increased dramatically. Those who liked military life would choose war-themed online games. Those who envied the ancient heroes who roamed the world could choose online games with a martial arts theme. If you were a playboy and couldn't do it in real life, there were also specialized online games to satisfy your needs. In short, as long as you didn't break the law, you could play the game however you wanted. There were some crazy game experiencers who were too addicted to the game world. In the end, they couldn't even tell the difference between the game and reality. They simply chose to freeze their real bodies and live forever in the game world. Bai Hua shook his head. "No, he wouldn't. My intuition tells me that Yu Wui isn't this type of player. He's very clear-headed and has a strong sense of purpose. It's just that his purpose is different from ours." Violet frowned and said uncertainly, "Could it be that this game really has some secret that no one knows about? You all know about the fiefdom acquisition scandal that's been causing a lot of buzz on the internet lately. It seems to be getting more and more intense. 2 days ago, a financial group contacted me and wanted to buy our territory. How much do you think he's offering?" "How much?" Cyan E asked curiously. Violet stretched out 5 fingers and said exaggeratedly, 500 million. "Oh my God, that's a lot. Why didn't you tell us before? We didn't earn that much from all the games we played before," Red Eagle said exaggeratedly. Violet glanced at Bai Hua and said, "I mentioned it to Big Sis, but she didn't agree." "Why?" Red Eagle asked Bai Hua this time. Bai Hua shook his head. "Silly girl, there's no such thing as a free lunch in the sky. It's too unusual for these financial groups to be buying up territory in the game like crazy. There must be something going on. These financial groups aren't fools. On the contrary, they're even smarter than us. Since they dare to offer 500 million, it means that there must be a huge profit to be made. Think about it. The games we played in the past also had similar settings, such as gang encampments or strongholds. At that time, the financial groups only cooperated with us in the form of endorsements or running shops. It's not like now, where we have to buy everything. That's why we have to stay calm at a time like this. We can't be greedy for the profits in front of us and miss a good opportunity. In any case, we don't lack money right now. With our savings, we won't be able to spend it all in a lifetime. Why should we be in a hurry to sell Linksea Town?" After listening to Bai Hua's explanation, Cyan E and Red Eagle nodded in agreement. "What kind of inside story is going on?" Cyan E muttered to herself. Bai Hua shook his head. "No one knows right now. Maybe only the large and medium-sized factions know. However, with the trend of the online wave, I don't think the Federation government will be able to hold out for long. I estimate that it won't be long before the Federation government has to come forward to explain and respond to public opinion." "That's right. I think so too. So what we need to do now is to stay put. Managing Linksea Town is the most important thing," Violet said. "Yes." The sisters nodded. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little heavy, Bai Hua ended the conversation. The sisters got up and went to play by themselves. At this time, Baihua would usually log into the game forums to learn about the latest developments. Violet's favorite activity was shopping online. 2 cloakrooms would not be able to fit all the clothes she had. Red Eagle walked into the gym unmoved. As for the youngest, Cyan E, she liked to watch anime alone. Sometimes, she would even drag her sisters to watch it with her. Plot preview. From tomorrow onwards, the Battle of Zhuelu will officially begin. Stay tuned. P.S. When it goes on sale tomorrow, 100 subscriptions plus 1 chapter. Great rewards can be added as appropriate. There's no cap. Thank you for your support. Chapter 127. On May 15th, 9 o'clock in the morning, the system announcement rang on time. System announcement. Approximately 3000 BC, in order to compete for the central plains suitable for grazing and shallow farming. The Yellow Emperor tribe joined forces with the Yin Emperor tribe and engaged in a huge battle with the Qiyu tribe from the south in the Zhuelu area. The battle ended with Qiu's death. The first epic battle, the Battle of Zhuelu, officially begins. At the Mountain Sea Town's teleportation array, 1,000 of Mountain Sea Town's most elite soldiers were ready to set off. When Ouyang Shuo heard the system announcement, he immediately said in a loud voice, "Set off." At the same time, a series of system prompts rang in his ears. System notification. Detecting whether player not wearing anything fulfills the requirements to participate in the war campaign. System notice. Player not wearing's territory, Shanghai Town, has been detected to be a level 3 town, meeting the requirements. System notice. Detecting player who says that has no closed noble rank to determine the participant quota. System notification. Player not wearing has been detected as a 2nd rank Earl and has 1,000 slots to participate in the battle. System notice. Player not wearing, please confirm the number of participants. 1,000 full. Ouyang Shuo said. System prompt. The epic Battle of Zhuelu is divided into the Yellow Emperor faction and the Qiyu faction. Players, please choose your faction. Special note. If you choose the faction that was defeated in history and reverse the historical ending, players in this faction will receive additional rewards. Please choose wisely. If it wasn't for the fact that the Yellow Emperor's camp had a reward that Ouyang Shuo had to obtain, Ouyang Shuo really might have chosen the Qiyu camp. He knew how generous the rewards for successfully reversing history would be. I choose the Yellow Emperor's side. System notification. Faction selection complete. System notice. Congratulations to player who has no clothes for activating the war teleportation array. 1,000 people will be teleported. 1,000 gold will be deducted from player who has no clothes teleportation fee. System notice. Teleportation has begun. The teleportation formation could teleport up to 200 people at a time. A troop of 1,000 people would be teleported in 5 batches. Ouyang Shuo was the first to start the teleportation, followed by Gu Hongliang and 2 infantry companies. After the teleportation array was activated, the Tai Chi pattern in the center began to spin rapidly. The 8 trigrams pattern and the heavenly stems and earthly branches pattern on the periphery lit up, appearing mysterious and unfathomable. With a swoosh, a white light flashed, and after experiencing a short period of dizziness, Ouyang Shuo and the others appeared in a strange world, a savage world. System notification. Welcome player who has no clothes to the war campaign map. This map is a special map. It is prohibited to use messenger pigeons or speak in the national channel. System notification. The time flow in the battle map and the main map is 10:1. In other words, 10 days will pass in the battle map, while only 1 day will pass in the main map. Please do not worry about the safety of your territory in the main map. System notice. Welcome player not wearing anything to the Yellow Emperor faction's headquarters. Yellow Emperor City. Ouyang Shuo opened his eyes and began to size up his surroundings. They were in an open area, similar to a public square. On the square, white lights flashed continuously, indicating that troops were being teleported over. The square wasn't very big. Soon, with the increase in the number of people being teleported, it began to feel crowded. Ouyang Shual waited for the rest of the troops to teleport over and meet up with them. At the same time, he took the time to size up the Yellow Emperor city before him. Yellow Emperor City. Rather than calling it a city, it would be more appropriate to call it a stronghold. In the era of the Yellow Emperor, there was no longer a need to build a nest on a tree. People began to live in thatched huts. The more advanced ones were already using lust to build walls and thatch to build roofs and eaves. After all 1,000 people had been teleported over, Ouyang Shu ordered Shi Wansui to assemble the troops. At this time, an NPC wearing black linen with a bee skin wrapped around his waist stood in front of the public square on a temporary high platform. He enthusiastically said, "Heaven sent mutants, welcome to Yellow Emperor City and assist us in fighting against the evil Qiyu tribe. I am Gongsun Lai, the Yellow Emperor City's receptionist. Now, lords, please follow me to the side to register. After that, please bring your troops to set up camp outside the city." Ouyang Shuo stared blankly. This is the meaning of driving us away? How enthusiastic. Ouyang Shuo ordered Shi Wansui to take care of the troops and walk towards Gongsun Lai. Wang Feng followed beside him as a temporary guard. Next to the high platform, there was a simple shed made of straw. Inside the shed, there was an extremely crudely made table and a wooden stool that were made from a single piece of wood. On the table, there was a pile of palm-sized wooden tablets. It was unknown what they were used for. Gongsun Lai sat behind the table and began to register the participating lords one by one. Name? Not wearing anything. When the surrounding lords heard Ouyang Shua's name, there was a commotion. Not wearing anything. The most mysterious lord of the China server had finally revealed his true appearance today. How could they not gather around to watch? Of course, there were also lords who had participated in the system's auction last time and had long since recognized him. They all went up to greet him. Ouyang Shual was not arrogant and responded to them one by one. Seeing the commotion in front of him, Gongsun Lai frowned and continued to ask, "Territory?" Ouyang Shual saw that the situation was not right. It was as if he had poked a hornet's nest. He immediately signaled to the surrounding players that they would talk after the registration. He turned his head and smiled apologetically at Gongsun Lai, saying, "Mountain and Sea Town. Number of troops? 1,000. Gongsun Lai was shocked. No wonder this person was so popular. It turned out that he had so many troops. On the surface, Gongsun Lai remained calm and collected. He took a wooden tablet from the table and engraved the two seal characters mountain and sea on it. Below it, he wrote down the number of troops. As for why Gongsun Lai knew how to write seal characters, he would have to ask the great god of the system. After engraving the basic information, Gongsun Lai handed the wooden tablet to Ouyang Shuo and said, "This is your identity tablet. You can enter and leave the Yellow Emperor City with this tablet. Otherwise, you will be treated as a spy." Ouyang Shuo nodded and took the tablet. On the front of the tablet was a vivid black bear. It should be the symbol of the Yu Xiong tribe, where the Yellow Emperor was. Because there were still people waiting to register, Ouyang Shuo did not look at it carefully. He directly hung the wooden tablet on his waist, turned around, and retreated to the side. He did not leave. The reason why Ouyang Shuo did not choose to leave was because he wanted to meet up with Bai Hua and a few other allies. Secondly, he wanted to observe which lords had chosen to join the Yellow Emperor's camp. There was another commotion at the back of the queue. Ouyang Shuo turned his head and saw that it was Di Chun walking over with his peerless elegance. Some of the lords in front of him automatically made way for Di Chun. Ouyang Shuo was not surprised that Di Chun had chosen to join the Yellow Emperor's camp. In reality, Di Chun's surname was Xin Yuan. His family also considered themselves the descendants of the Yellow Emperor. Therefore, in this battle of Zhuolu, with Di Chun's proud personality, he would still choose the Yellow Emperor's camp even if he knew that choosing the Qiyu camp would give him extra rewards. Reality proved that Di Chun's choice was right. The reward that Ouyang Shuo coveted was obtained by Di Chun in his previous life. Unfortunately, with Ouyang Shuo's presence, everything was different. The receptionist, Gongsun Lai, did not care about the disputes between the players. He asked in a businesslike manner, "Name?" "Di Chun." Gongsun Lai frowned again. This name was a bit taboo. "Territory?" "Handan Town." "How many troops?" 500. Ouyang Shua nodded. As expected, Di Chun was only a third-rank earl. Although it was already a very high rank in the Chinese server, it was still a far cry from Ouyang Shua's. After Di Chun, the other two members of the Handan Alliance, Army Breaker and Tao Wu, registered. Kil Ruo Jun was a first-rank viscount with 300 men under his command. Lao Ai was a second-rank viscount with 200 men under his command. The entire Handan Alliance had a total of 1,000 troops. After the registration, Di Chun saw Ouyang Shua standing at the side. His eyes narrowed. At the last auction, the two of them had almost fallen out. However, as a descendant of an aristocratic family, Di Chun was still shrewd. He showed a smile that he thought was friendly and said, "Brother Wui, how have you been?" It was the first time that peerless elegance saw Ouyang Shua. When she heard Di Chun's greeting, she was startled. Her beautiful eyes glanced at Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua had already decided not to be nice to Di Chun. Since they were destined to be enemies, there was no need for him to continue pretending. He was not a descendant of an aristocratic family. Ouyang Shua nodded, his expression cold. Di Chun was stunned again. He was extremely embarrassed that Ouyang Shua did not play by the rules. Army Breaker curled his lips in disdain and said sarcastically, "In the end, you are just a lowly commoner. You don't know any etiquette." When Army Breaker said this, he did not notice that Lao Ai, who was standing beside him, had stiffened. When Wang Feng saw that Ouyang Shua was being insulted, he immediately pulled out the Tang saber at his waist and shouted, "How dare you insult my lord? You are seeking death." As he spoke, he was about to step forward and teach Army Breaker a lesson. Ouyang Shua waved his hand and stopped Wang Feng's impulsive action. His eyes instantly turned cold. He stared at Army Breaker and said in a cold voice, "What's the use of having sharp tongue? Very soon, I will turn you, a courteous dog who cheers for your master, into a dead dog." "You!" Army Breaker was furious and was about to start fighting. Di Chun also stopped Army Breaker from making an unwise move. He looked at Ouyang Shua and said with a fake smile, "Looks like Brother Wui is determined to go against our Handan Alliance. All right, then I will wait and see. Let's go." This last sentence was said for Army Breaker to hear. Likewise, Ouyang Shua naturally would not show weakness. This confrontation fell into the eyes of the surrounding Lord players. The mission had not even started, and the two leaders of the Yellow Emperor's camp were already fighting amongst themselves. This was really interesting. To be continued. Chapter 128. After a small disturbance in Yellow Emperor's city, the registration point returned to normal. Top novel. Ouyang Shua successfully met up with Bai Hua, Mulan Yu, and the Siege Lion. What surprised him was that Feng Xiuhuang had also chosen to join the Yellow Emperor's camp. Given the tacit understanding between the original 6 hegemons of Handan, it was impossible for Feng Xiuhuang not to know that Di Chun would choose the Yellow Emperor's side. Just like Lord Chun Shun and Warwolf, they had tacitly led the Spring-Autumn Alliance and the Iron Blood Alliance to join Chiyu's camp. If it was said that he wanted to be on the same side as Ouyang Shua, then it wouldn't make sense. After all, Ouyang Shua did not tell Feng Xiuhuang which faction he was going to choose. Feng Xiuhuang was a third-rank earl and had 500 troops under him. After registering, she took the initiative to walk to Ouyang Shua's side and said with a smile, "Lord Wui, are you surprised by my choice?" Ouyang Shua nodded and straightforwardly said, "Yes. I'm starting to suspect that there might have been a mole in the alliance of mountains and seas who tipped you off. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence?" Cough, cough. The Siege Lion choked on Ouyang Shua's words. As the saying goes, the speaker may not mean it, but the listener is interested. In reality, it was the Siege Lion who told Feng Xiuhuang about Ouyang Shua's choice of faction. Ouyang Shua suspiciously looked at the Siege Lion and said in astonishment, It can't be? I really guessed correctly. Siege Lion, you traitor, prioritizing a lover over a friend. The Siege Lion embarrassedly smiled and said, "Cough, cough, brother Wooey, haha, today's weather is really good. We should talk about something more positive, right? Look, with Lord Feng Qiuhuang joining us, the number of troops on our side far exceeds Di Chen's. This is a good thing, isn't it?" Milan Lanyue stood at the side and said mockingly, "You fell for her beauty trap, yet you still feel so good about yourself. Big Brother Lion, you're so shameless." The Siege Lion's face turned red, and he said shyly, You, don't mock your brother like that. All right, it's about time. Let's go meet up with the troops and find a suitable place to set up camp. Otherwise, we'll have to sleep in the wilderness tonight." Ouyang Shua didn't want to pursue this matter. After gathering the troops, the troop of 2,000 people walked out of the city in a grandiose manner. Aside from White Birch, Cyan Shirt, and Red Eagle had also come to Consonance Town. Of the four beauties, only Violet had stayed behind to guard the main map. The 300 men that Bai Hua had brought were all cavalry. The historical figure of Lingxi Town finally appeared. He was one of the 5 great generals of Chao Wei during the Three Kingdoms period, Zhang Liao. Zhang Liao, courtesy name Wen Yuan, from Mai Yinmen. A famous general of Chao Wei during the Three Kingdoms period. He had served Ding Yuan, Dong Zhuo, and Lu Bu. After the Battle of Xiapi, they submitted to Cao Cao. After that, he followed Cao Cao on his conquests and made many contributions. Together with Guan Yu, they broke through the White Horse Siege, surrendered Chanka to the East Sea, attacked Yuan Shang in Yi City, led the vanguard to kill the Wuhuan chief Tu Tun at White Wolf Mountain, and also defeated Liaodong's Lu Yi, Huainan's Mei Cheng, and Chunlan. After the Battle of Ruxu, Cao Cao appointed Zhang Liao, Li Jian, and Yu Jin to guard Hefei. Zhang Liao had repelled Sun Wu's attacks many times. In the Battle of Xiaoyao Jing in the 20th year of Jianan, he had defeated an army of 100,000 with only 7,000 men and almost captured Sun Quan alive. After this battle, Zhang Liao's name spread far and wide, becoming one of the most respected generals in history. After Cao Pai ascended to the throne, he still ordered Zhang Liao to guard Sun Quan. In the second year of the Yellow Dynasty, Zhang Liao was stationed at Yongqiu and fell ill. Sun Quan was still very wary of Zhang Liao during his illness. In the third year of the Yellow Dynasty, Zhang Liao did not disappoint and defeated General Lu Fan. In the same year, he died of illness in Jiangdu. He was granted the title of Marquis Gang at the age of 54. In Luofeng Town, other than Feng Qiuhuang, there was also Qing Wan among the core players. In Luofeng Town, there were 300 saber and shield soldiers and 200 archers. The chief commander was a junior general, Di Qiu. As for Mu Lanyue and the Siege Lion led 100 primitive saber and shield soldiers. On Mu Lanyue's side, Mu Guiying led 100 archers. As such, out of the 2,000 people, there were 500 cavalrymen, 50 of whom were heavy armored cavalrymen, 1,500 infantrymen, 100 heavy armored infantrymen, 600 saber and shield soldiers, 500 archers, and 300 crossbowmen. Apart from Shi Wansui, Mu Guiying, and Zhang Liao, the 3 historical generals, there was also a strategist like Zhu Shou. Out of the 5 territories, only Luofeng Town seemed a little shabby. It did not have any historical generals or famous strategists. This was because people like Feng Qiuhuang, who had skipped the village creation quest and directly obtained a silver-grade village creation token, had lost the right to obtain a summoning talisman. As such, Luofeng Town did not have a single historical talent. In the village creation quest, players who obtained a bronze-grade village creation token could only obtain a gold-grade special talent. Players who obtained a black iron-grade village creation token had a 1% chance of obtaining a king-grade summoning talisman. As for players who obtained a silver-grade village creation token, they had a 100% chance of obtaining a king-grade summoning talisman. Of the 10,000 people in the China region who had completed the village creation quest, around 1,000 people had failed, Around 7,200 had obtained a bronze grade village creation token, 1,800 had obtained a black iron grade village creation token, and only 5 had obtained a silver grade village creation token. As such, only around 20 people had obtained a king grade summoning talisman from the village creation quest. Mulan Yue and Siege Lion had both obtained a black iron grade village creation token, but they had been lucky enough to obtain a king grade summoning talisman. As for Bai Hua and Dragon Seeking Acupuncture Point, they had both obtained a silver grade village creation token. As for the other 3 silver grade village creation tokens, they were most likely obtained by Xiong Ba, Wandering Huan, and Swan and I. In the previous territory creation battle, apart from Ouyang Shua's Shanghai Village, which had a gold grade village creation token, the other 11 territories in the China region had all obtained silver grade village creation tokens. This was also the only silver grade village creation token in the China region. As for whether someone had obtained a silver grade village creation token through other means, it was still unknown. Just as he walked out of the city gates, Ouyang Shua heard an announcement. Battle campaign announcement. In this Battle of Zhualu, 105 territories are participating, with a total of 18,000 soldiers. Among them, the Yellow Emperor's camp has 40 territories, with a total of 8,000 soldiers. The Chio's camp has 65 territories, with a total of 10,000 soldiers. As expected, more players chose to join the Chio's camp for the generous rewards of reversing history. If Ouyang Shua had not chosen the Yellow Emperor's camp, the difference in military strength between the two sides would have been even greater. What was more interesting was that of the top 12 territories in the China region, both sides had 6 territories each, and it was a draw. On the Yellow Emperor's side, there were Ouyang Sha, Di Chun, Feng Xiaohuang, Army Kill Ripper Bai Hua, and Swan and I. On the Chio's side, there were Lord Chun Shen, Feng Qingyang, War Wolf, Xiong Ba, Wandering Huan, and Dragon Seeking Acupuncture Point. Coincidentally, the original Han Dan 6 hegemons also had 3 people on each side. At first glance, it seemed that both sides had reached a draw in terms of high-end combat strength. In reality, the Yellow Emperor's camp had already split into 2 opposing factions, the Mountain and Sea Alliance and the Han Dan Alliance. On the other hand, on the Chio's side, the Spring and Autumn Alliance, led by Lord Chunshin, and the Iron Blood Alliance, formed by War Wolf, were likely to cooperate. Therefore, whether it was in terms of military strength or high-end combat strength, the Yellow Emperor's camp had already lost. Battle announcement. Because the Yellow Emperor's camp's military strength is weaker than the Chio's, according to the rules of the battle, the Yellow Emperor's camp will automatically receive a 10% increase in defense strength. When this announcement was made, the players in the Yellow Emperor's camp heaved a sigh of relief. This was the system's balancing strategy. Only when the two sides were evenly matched could they fight. Otherwise, if the gap between the two sides was too large, there would be no point in fighting. This way, in future battles, it was very likely that the camps would be one-sided. This was not a situation that the system wanted to see happen. Generally speaking, the system's compensation was based on the difference in military strength between the two sides. The buff effect could be to increase the defense strength of the troops, or to increase the attack strength or movement speed of the troops. Apart from that, if the gap between the two sides was too large, there might be a loss effect. For example, it could weaken the defensive strength, attack strength, or movement speed of the side that had the advantage. Battle announcement. According to the rules of the battle, the person with the highest rank in the camp will automatically receive the title of Inhuman Representative. Inhuman Representative has the right to directly meet the leader of the camp and listen to the camp's military meeting. If there is a situation where the ranks are equal, it will be decided by the number of achievement points. Battle announcement. According to the results of the ranking and achievement points test, the Yellow Emperor's Inhuman Representative is Hiyu Wui, 2nd rank Earl. The Chio's Inhuman Representative is Lord Chunshin, 3rd rank Earl. When the announcement came out, the players were in an uproar. Although the title of Inhuman Representative couldn't lead the players' army, the 2 rights it had were both coveted. Directly meeting the leader of the camp meant that the player could come into contact with the core figures of the camp, which made it easier to trigger the mission of subduing historical figures. Apart from that, they could also make their presence known in front of the camp's leader, and even offer advice and suggestions. The benefits of this depended on how the player grasped and operated. It was really indescribable. Listening to the camp's military meeting meant that the player had already infiltrated the core of the camp's military and could understand the camp's deployment and battle plans. This kind of information was very crucial to the future deployment arrangements of themselves and their allies. In fact, if the time was right, they could even speak at the military meeting and fight for more benefits. It could be said that these two rights already included the core benefits of the battle system. How could people not be envious and jealous? The players with the slightest bit of brains already understood that the inhuman representative of the camp, if nothing unexpected happened, would be the leader of the player's army. There was nothing wrong with following him. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.